Welcome, everybody. We are live and ready to rock. It is going to be the finale. It's going to be for all the marbles now. This is the final. And if you don't know where you're at right now, this is the Dota Underlords Challenger Series Europe October 2019 final. I am your host, Rob AJG, and I am joined by a much better and smarter player than I am. Tin Man, are you there?
Oh, I am here, Rob. Don't put yourself down so much.
Hey,
I'm
hey,
really
I'm
excited for this tournament.
I'm not putting myself down. I'm lifting you up, okay? And we know that when you start playing into this level of the tournament, when you're at the end, you've got 8 players. I mean, what does it look like for you? Like, I mean, how does your strategy change, or does it change at all?
Oh, certainly changes. I mean, you've got eight of the best players in Europe in this finals, and every single one of these players was I recognize as like a high-ranking Lord player from last season before the ladder got reset. And so you know that the competition is going to be tough. You know you're not going to get free round wins. People are going to
Mm-hmm.
have great compositions. They're going to have great builds. They're going to be playing optimally, and it's going to be tooth and nail fighting for every single placement, every single round.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is when you get to this level, you know that playing in a Lord lobby is actually a little bit different than playing in, let's say, a random lobby, right? Because Lords know what they're doing, and some of the other players are kind of maybe experimenting, so you can really kind of get into those certain builds, right? That are good against Lords, but maybe not good against everyone else.
Certainly. So yes, there's a way of playing at like higher levels of games where you know that your opponent knows what's going on. It's kind of like the game theory, like I know what I'm doing and he knows what I know what I'm doing, and like you know each other. Whereas if you're just playing against maybe less experienced players, less observant players, perhaps they they won't read the signals. It's kind of like drafting in card
Yeah.
games. You're able to read the signals. It's a little smoother to draft with like pro players who know what's going on.
So, well, let's talk about the meta right now. We have about 5 hours left in our current jail, and jail for this particular round is looks like to me that we are not going to have anti mage. We're not going to have Kunkka, no Terrorblade, no Enigma, Broodmother, Ogre Magi, Lifestealer, and Bat Rider. They're all out. What does that mean for the Lord meta, and what should we expect to see from some of these players?
Well, compared to some previous days jails, this jail is actually, I would say, lower impact. There's not as many very key pieces in a lot of builds that are out today. Enigma is out. He is often considered a key piece in the six primordial build, since being the ace of primordials. But other than that, pretty much every other unit is easily replaceable within its build. You've got Anti-Mage, and there's plenty of other assassins. You've got Terrorblade out, there's plenty of other hunters. Kunkka, plenty of other warriors, and the other ones are just replaceable. So I don't think that this will have so dramatic of an impact. Like in previous days, we've had units like Keeper of the Light who are out,
Right.
and that just eliminated mages from the meta. Or you had Clockwork out, or Timbersaw, or one of the scrappy inventors out, and that made those kind of scrappy strategies basically not viable at all. Here, I think we'll have a pretty open meta, and we should see some good diversity coming out of it.
Well, and let's talk about the meta right now. Some players aren't quite as familiar with what the meta looks like. I see a lot of base warriors splashing maybe maybe hunter, splashing trolls, just a lot of different things, splashing druids. What does it look like now at the Lord lobby? Because I can only speak to a little bit lower lobbies.
It's definitely that Warriors is extremely powerful right now. There's no way to get around that. The Warrior bonus is simply the best defensive alliance, and because there's so many of them, especially at the low costs, you've got Tiny, Tusk, Slarter, and Pudge all at 1 and 2 cost. It's very, very common to see a lot of players start out with a warrior start with at least 3 warriors, and that just naturally builds into more warriors or to things that build off those synergies. So more scaled, like Tidehunter, more Heartless with Pudge, or the Savages with Tusk. And those are definitely the most popular builds right now, but they are far from the only thing that is viable. You've got ways to pair up warriors with hunters, as you mentioned, but also there's full assassin builds that can do quite well. You've got the primordial builds, you've got mage builds that, whenever they're not affected by the jail, are still viable. So you do see some diversity, even if warriors are a little bit overrepresented.
Yeah, and now with Kunkka jailed, one of the things that was always nice about having Kunkka in your warrior build was that when you played against mages, usually mages are cornered, and you can get that big AoE splash stun. Without Kunkka, do you expect to see some of these players going more mage, or is it, who gets the first 3 warrior bonus, and can they get a Pudge level 2 and start pushing it? Do you expect more just everybody push warriors, or do you truly expect to see some of these other builds come out?
I would be surprised if we don't see at least 4 to 5 people going warriors every game. I think it should definitely be the majority of lobbies, just because they're so flexible and so prevalent. Like I said, there's so many warriors in the game. So it wouldn't be at all unusual to see a good number of people going for that. Although I think the remainder of lobby would be some kind of split between 3 or 6 hunter builds, 6 assassin builds, maybe some mages. And I don't know if Kunkka being out really affects them that much, because of the change to, well, maybe not change, but the prevalence of Tiny as
Right.
an AoE stun unit. Some people are even thinking Tiny is just a better version of Kunkka that also
What?
one.
That's a
Well,
hot take right there.
maybe not strictly better, but you could be forgiven for passing up on Kunkka if you have a Tiny already.
Interesting.
Tiny and Tidehunter, just at some point you need some more damage. So if you've already got your stuns covered, you maybe don't need Kunkka so much. But obviously they won't be able to play with it today, so we should definitely see lots of Tinies, lots of Tidehunters to fulfill that CC role.
Well, and it just means that there's going to be more of a push if you're in Warriors to make sure that you do have that Tiny early, and make sure that you can maybe deter some of these other players getting into Warriors. Because if you are the player that has maybe a level 2 Tiny early and are working for that 3, maybe you can just put a little bit of hesitation in the back of one of these other players' mind. Maybe the 4th warrior player or the 5th warrior player, maybe they say, you know what, oh god, I don't know if there's enough for me to really be able to do it. Because now if they have Tiny plus, like you said, Tidehunter, and there's no Kunkka to maybe replace it, maybe you can get them to do something else and make your warriors a little bit stronger. But all right, so let's check real fast and see where we are at in our lobby. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. Looks like we have 8 in the lobby, so I'll make sure I get readied up, and we will just wait for our first game to begin. But as we're waiting, what should the people who are watching at home, what should they be on the lookout for?
I think you should be on the lookout to see the little bits of diversity. I know we mentioned that a lot of players are probably going to be playing Warriors just because it's a very strong meta build right now. But simply saying Warriors, or some people refer to it as like a good stuff build, that's a very, very broad title. And you'll see a lot of nuances, a lot of small changes, whether you go for 3 warriors or 6 warriors, whether you go with hunters and which hunters you pair it with, and which other damage dealers. And there's a lot of little nuance there. And I'm interested to see what some of these top players determine is best in the meta, or is best against the other players in that game.
Well, it's settled then.
Even if some of the strategies do look a little bit similar on the surface level, digging a little bit deeper, you can spot some very distinct differences.
All right, we do see that there is a lot of players all playing the same Underlord. Why is that?
A Nesix, yes. A Nesix is essentially the default Underlord right now.
Right?
There's only 2 Underlords, so whenever you have a relatively small set of choices to choose from, if one of them is slightly better, then suddenly you get everybody on that. Whereas if you had 4 or 5 different choices, well, they could be slightly better in their own ways. But with just 2, the diversity is a little bit limited. So I'm sure once they add more Underlords, we'll see a lot more diversity.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever I play and I see something that isn't an Essex, I just wonder, like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you handicap yourself right now? It just seems like the healing, then I guess the decision now is, in a lobby, when it's all the same, do you just choose different traits now? Do you imagine that you look at a couple of other things that you might look at differently?
Yeah, there are obviously 4 talent choices at every tier, except for the ultimate ability on round 20, and most of them do have their time and place, and you'll probably see some that are more popular than others. But even going similar builds, people definitely have different preferences. For example, one of the ones on round 10, the Brill Bruiser ability that changes her companion into a melee unit. I personally don't really like that ability, but I know
Really?
a lot of people do. And well, maybe I'm just burned from it because like the one time I picked it, I lost fights because it was just
Is
standing there,
standing
not
there?
there and doing anything. And I was just a little bit salty that, I would have won this fight if it was the archer.
Yeah.
But I think people are starting to come around to it a little bit more as the other ability in that tier, Chaotic Hunter, was nerfed on the latest
Right.
pack.
Yeah, because Chaotic Hunter not having the like triple shot makes it significantly worse.
Certainly does. When the main value in that is its damage output, you substantially nerf that damage output, and it's a lot less appealing.
And just for everybody at home, we are spectating Triple N here. And the way we're going to do it today is we're going to stick with our player here and just kind of see what their thought process is, where they're trying to go with it, and just learn as much as we can from our players who have made this finale. And as you can see, have an early Pudge going, have Tusk, and then decided to put in the Shadow Demon here, which, doesn't really matter on combat round 3, but we would assume that this would be a smuggler pick, which is an excellent pick early, and
yes.
now he has the ability to play the third, but goes ahead and gets a Slardar here to be able to have the 3 warriors early, but will we see that?
It's a little bit debatable whether you want the 2 Heartless from the Demon or if you want the 3 Warriors. Looks like they're going to stick with the Heartless. I guess the argument is -5 armor on the enemy is better than +10 armor on you. I don't know if that math really
Right,
checks
I was
out,
gonna say that
but
math does
seems to
not
be the
work. And on
I
top of that, you've got but I see that they're also, when you get the demon bonus, you do get the extra, generation to your Underlord. Maybe that's a possibility as well.
Yeah, I think the argument is that despite the fact that the Heartless bonus may be a touch weaker, the Shadow Demon as a unit is stronger than, say, a 1-star Tiny at this point. Tiny would definitely take over at 2-star, but at 1-star, Tiny is just a little bit too fragile, a little bit too low impact compared to the Shadow Demon, who has obviously the increased type generation and also just has a very powerful ability that deals a rather large chunk of damage here early on in the game.
Yeah, and you can see here, having a level 2 Tiny ends up being just a little bit too much for Triple N and will be an early loss, but losing early here isn't the end-all be-all.
Absolutely not.
It just depends on now whether or not this player wants to maybe push for a lose streak, which I have seen a lot of players do, or do they say, you know what, maybe if I just replace Tiny here and try to make a move there, something can happen.
So we see they got the upgrade to the 2-star Shadow Demon in this pack, and looks like they're opting to use that free reroll right away and just buy up a bunch of the bench. Personally, I think there was an argument once you got the 2-star Shadow Demon to just spend your gold to level up, because you now have an upgrade. Now you actually have a reasonable chance of actually going on a win streak. 1 loss, whatever, you can forget about it and start a new win streak when you find that upgrade. But it seems like they're going to play it a little bit slower and, possibly lose this round against opponents who have more star units. And try to go for the long game.
Yeah, and this looks like it's going to be a really rough one. We do see a hook from Pudge on both of the Underlords, but it looks like the opponent's Underlord is actually going to fall first here. I don't know that matters much when there's a level 2 Tiny and a level 2 Tusk getting busy, but this would have not been close either way. I think if they would have leveled to 5, they probably still would have lost, but it might have been maybe 1 or 2 life they would have saved, maybe?
Yeah, possibly. I have to question the decision to be corner positioned right here. Both rounds so far, they've gone up against a Tiny, and it's absolutely demolished this back corner positioning. There's no reason to really be this stacked up at the moment. You can spread out your Anesix from your Shadow Demon because people are going to be playing Tiny. If you look around, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people playing Tiny. More likely than not, you're going to face one of them. And just being this closely stacked just sets yourself up for
They
failure.
won't be able to deal
Right,
with
and
this.
I think let's talk also about the power of Pudge and being able to hook the opposing Underlord and immediately take them out. I see that happen a lot, and I see that there's this thought process that maybe you don't place an E6 as far back, so that maybe another piece is a little bit farther back so you don't get hooked. Is that something that you see?
Definitely, with Pudge being so incredibly prevalent, not only because he has the two best tags in the game, the Warrior and the Heartless tag, but also just his hook ability. Almost everybody is trying to play Pudge at some point in the game, and you really need to consider your formation on who you want to be Pudge hook, just because he is so prevalent. And oftentimes you'll see them try to run a ranged unit. This is why we specifically see the Shadow Demon in the corner and an Essex next to it rather than vice versa, just for the chance that maybe Shadow Demon gets hooked instead.
And as you see here, there was that hook that came in, got Venno, and then also came back, hooked an Essex. But it looks like a time is going to run out here because they're going to probably be able to take out an Essex here. But I don't know if they're going to have the damage to be able to survive through Drow. And Drow is coming through, going to be able to finish this up. And there is another loss for Triple N.
But honestly, keeping a losing streak going for such a minimal life total loss, I think that's a good position to be in. Their composition is not that bad. They're actually one of the only people to have not leveled up so far, and actually the only person to not level to 5, and just kind of embracing the small lose streak. If you're just losing by 2 life per round, I think that is a win. I mean, you're going to get more gold than somebody win lose without a streak, and you get a free reroll. That seems pretty good in my book.
Yeah, the only problem is you can never bank on small losses, right? Like there's always this chance when you're trying to get the small losses that you may actually win. And here, this is a really good example of it. Does have a level 2 Tiny that goes ahead and jumps in, but this opponent doesn't have too much going on. The level 2 Tiny is probably going to go ahead and fall right here, and now we're going to be able to move on. There's another toss. Doesn't really matter here. Opposing Demon down. Now you've got Tusk isn't going to be able to stand up against the level 2 Tusk and the Pudge, so you're going to see the opposing Tusk end up getting down. Oh, maybe not. Oh, there's the heal, goes down. Drow trying to fight their best against Pudge, and that's probably not going to work either, but there is a hook.
Spread out.
Look at this. Is it possible that this is going to be another small loss? Look at Pudge.
Wow.
Pudge trying to hold on, but it is another, like, 2 life loss, and I definitely thought that was going to be a win there.
Yeah, I thought Triple N was going to win that. The damage was a little bit too spread out. Actually, the Pudge hook, which essentially taunts your own units to focus fire on the Pudge hook target, actually backfired there a little bit because the damage got too spread out on the higher health targets. But, you know, if you want to keep a losing streak, that was actually rather ideal. So now we see them, they've leveled up. They've chosen to spend that gold to level up and put in a Treant Protector, who is one of the strongest early game units, especially if you get a 2-star.
Yes. We know that 2-star Treant and possibly 3-star Treant are real good at what they do, and that is soaking the damage up. And in the middle of our fight, we do see opposing Walrus punches going at it. This level 2 Tusk on the other side is getting jumped here 4v1, and now it's onto the Venomancer. Venomancer is not going to have any chance here. It's going to fall as well. And then poor Drow. There's no chance for Drow either. This is going to be the first victory for Triple N, and it doesn't look like any units are going to be lost here. Incoming Walrus punch, and that is it. First victory. Lose streak over.
Yeah, I guess I misspoke earlier. I guess 2x Josh here what actually did stay on level 4 as well. I thought everybody else had leveled to 5. But it turns out when you're going up against the one person who's a lower level than you, you get the dominating win, doing, you know, maximum damage, doing that full 8 damage to him. So that's the way to end your lose streak, right?
Right, and it's always hurtful when you see something like that happen. You're like, man, if I could just not, if you're trying to keep a lose streak, I mean, if I could just not go against the one player, or maybe like one of the 2 players in the lobby who is strictly worse than me, but in that case, did end up with the victory, stems the bleeding a little bit, but maybe they wanted to bleed it a little bit more because there's not very often that you're going to be able to get like 4 losses in a row and only lose like 8 or 9 health.
Absolutely, and now it's risky because if you look around the lobby, there's a lot of people who have much stronger builds. So you may end up breaking your losing streak and start winning for nothing. You might just go right back to losing, in which case you don't get the loss streak bonus. So it's a little bit dangerous when you break that losing streak to say, well, I gotta keep winning.
Yeah, but here's the good thing for our player Triple N is they do have Pudge advantage, so they were able to go ahead and get the opposing Anisix off the board. But can they get this level 2 Treant and then level 2 Veno off the board? Our Tusk is really going to try its best to try to get one more Walrus Punch in there, and it does! Takes the Veno to the sky, and now it's going to be Shadow Demon versus a very, very dead Enchantress.
That Shadow Demon really carried that fight.
Really did.
Shadow Demon 2-star, his ability is so massively impactful. It's kind of like the old Viper ultimate, which dramatically slowed the attack and movement speed of the unit, essentially like stunning them for the duration and then dealing a big chunk of damage. It hits pretty hard and wins these fights when he gets to cast it multiple times.
Yeah, and you'll see here that we, for Triple N, has chosen to go with the Bruiser. Now, the only thing I would say is if your the positioning that I always have with Bruiser is so that the Bruiser is always positioned and will summon frontline. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can basically have 3 people behind you and do it that way, and then hope that somehow there's not like a small millisecond where one of those units move and then the Bruiser gets summoned somewhere else. Or you can kind of do it this way, just use it as a bodyguard and hope for the best. But for me, I like it as an aggressive unit playing frontline and making sure that it summons frontline. And when you do that, it goes a little bit wild when you can just see it just smashing the hell out of the opposing team.
Certainly does. I definitely don't like this position with the Brill Bruiser, but it is the creep round, so I'm sure they'll
fix it. Yeah,
because you see it pretty much did nothing in this fight. But it's the creep round. You beat it anyway. So
yeah, it just watched. It was just wondering, how things were going, just supervising that time. Ooh, a Sacred Relic here early.
Oh, that is so good. The main power of Smuggler is on round 10 and on round 20. If you can get a tier 3 item on that round 10 because of Smuggler, or a tier 4 item on round 20,
oh yeah,
it's so impactful. And I guess on round 30, you can also get a tier 5 item,
which is also nuts.
Absolutely nuts. That was something they also changed in the big update a few weeks back. Was they increased the odds of those tier 5 units, or tier 5 items rather. They come a little bit earlier in the game, which makes Smuggler even more powerful because you can speed up and get to them a little bit faster.
Yeah, I heard that Heart of Tarask is a good item. So
yes, it is. in fact, it's quite good on Pudge.
As it works.
You have, as Pudge has so much health total already, and just continuing to ramp that.
And there you go. You talked about it earlier. Tiny being able to have that AoE stun does get that off, but we see having that Pudge advantage means that there is a hook on Anisix. Anisix is going to fall, but the Brill Bruiser that's next to it is also going to fall. Thought it might be able to stay a little bit longer, and here you see the power of our Brill Bruiser going around, looking for the next target. Doesn't have one. Doesn't matter. Going to go ahead down, and that Eidolon going to catch a butt kicking at the end.
So I said I thought they would rearrange their positioning.
They did it.
Move an Essex here, but it actually worked out quite well because the opponent, PD SPD, had an assassin, the Bounty Hunter, which jumped right onto the Essex. And one of the big advantages of Brill Bruiser is countering opposing assassins. They're going to go for your Underlord, and then the Brill Bruiser is going to be right there to protect.
Yeah, and having Pudge as well means you'll be able to hook one of the opposing units. A lot of time it will end up being the opposing Underlord, and then having the Bruiser there, that's just food for the Bruiser. So having this Pudge advantage is so key right now. I'm still again wondering if that's going to be the long-term goal here, is just to continue with this this corner strat. But again, these players are Lord Lobby players, and I am a mere pleb, so who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant about Brill Bruiser in Warrior builds specifically. I like actually playing Brill Bruiser. I don't like playing in Warriors, but I love playing it when I'm playing Assassins because you already lack a little bit of a front line. With so many Warriors, ideally, your opponents are not getting through your Warriors to get to your Underlord. But whenever opponents are playing Assassins or are getting around your Warriors, it can be extremely powerful, even if you are kind of cornered like this.
Yeah, and we see that we have a returning level 2 Shadow Demon, and that is really, really bad for Triple N here. It looks like we're going to be finding a loss coming their way, and it's going to be about just how big it is. Right now, it's at 2, 4, 5, 6 life loss, and that's a big chunk considering... Oh, no, 4 life, but... was streaking there, so that loss does hurt a little bit.
A little bit. They were able to get the win streak started. They got the 3 rounds in a row and then lost. That being said, the the IO is just so incredibly powerful,
Oh yeah.
especially this early on in the game, giving the extra attack speed. And actually, there's a little bit of I'd say probably say an unintended interaction or a bug right now in the game with Helm of the Undying on IO, which we saw the opponent have there. If IO is Undying and then casts Relocate during that Undying state, the unit will like come back a little bit quicker. As soon as IO officially dies, it'll come back. It won't wait the full 4 seconds, and it will be considered tethered to the IO who is now dead.
What?
It's a really weird bug, and I mean, I've heard about this like a week ago, so I was really surprised that it hasn't been fixed or patched yet.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of it, and you can see here that RN6 did go ahead and get hooked, but because of that, the Bruiser is now going to be able to find some work, and right, it's not very often you see your Bruiser attacking the opponent's Underlord, but that was what was happening there, and it is another victory for Triple N.
Yeah, a little bit of a speed bump on the loss last round, but it looks like this is a quite powerful composition for Triple N here. There's a couple upgrades to still find, obviously the Slarder 2-star and one of the Druids up to 2-star, but overall I think this is a build right now that could continue a win streak, even though it had that one loss. It could get right back on the train, right back on that win streak with 1 or 2 more up.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, why it was just actually pretty unfortunate to get that loss there, because it looked like this build has the opportunity to go a little bit into the mid game. And when you get that loss, it's so rough, because you know that you could maybe have put together 5-6 wins, and that's going to cost you, I mean, it's not going to cost you an insane amount of gold. It'll cost you maybe 4 or 5 gold, but 4 or 5 gold does compound, and we have to think about it that way.
All right, looks like they're up against Nervin here, who's got a similar type of build. They've got the 3 warriors, they've got the Heartless, but they've got the 2-star Slardar, who does a lot of damage in this early game, especially with his armor shredding ultimate that reduces your armor by 30, which is so much armor.
Yeah, and that's a lot of extra damage, and this is a really interesting situation too here, because RN6 did get hooked and then dropped the Bruiser in, and normally if your Underlord gets hooked, it's definitely going to die, but this time it did not, and it looks like the opposing Underlord is going to be falling here. Now it's a matter of, can IO carry it? What's IO going to bring back? Brings back the Slardar, some extra DPS, going right for the Tidehunter, and Tidehunter is going to get slapped down, and now it's just a mediocre Shadow Demon that's going to get taken down as well. Another victory for Triple N.
The important part of this fight was 2-star Treant Protector. One of those 2 Druids was randomly going to be upgraded due to the Druid Alliance. They got the 2-star Treant Protector, and it's out-healed an Essex, and a 2-star Treant Protector is just so incredibly impactful in these fights. If it doesn't get burst down or doesn't get CC'd, it's going to take over the fights whenever you get down to like 3 units on each side or something like that. Whenever some of the units are already gone, it's going to take over fights.
You do see a Rasta up to level 2. Not sure how we're going to try to fit that Rasta in right now. Doesn't look like this is a troll build, and doesn't have any other shamans here to maybe try to have an opportunity to get to that level 2 shaman. I mean, excuse me, a level 2 druid.
Right, that's an interesting point, that Shadow Shaman before the big update was kind of like laughably the worst unit in the game.
Easily trash.
Easily, there was like the Shadow Shaman tier was like the bad units, and they made just some relatively minor adjustments. They increased his attack speed a little bit, and they made his cooldown a bit shorter, and they reduced his mana cost, which doesn't solve any like the fundamental problems that he kind of lacks some impact in the late game. But in these early games, that actually means that he is like chain stunning opponents, or chain them with the 6-second duration on an 8-second cooldown. You only have 2 seconds of uptime before you're back to being a chicken.
Yeah, he does a lot of chicken work, and I was really impressed. I mean, I guess it's hard to say impressed because of just how bad it was previously. So making it even remotely decent now is the impression, but it definitely feels more powerful. Very rarely will I make a level 3 Rasta, but a level 2 Rasta definitely doesn't feel as atrocious as it used to be.
Certainly not in the early game. I think he's a perfectly serviceable unit in the first 15 to 20 rounds. And unless you're going for some troll strategy, you generally want to be transitioning away from him by then. But he is a perfectly serviceable unit, which is more than we could have ever said before this update.
And let's also talk about the fact that Triple N is in first place now at 83. in at level 8, but the economy here is what's really interesting to me. 26 on the gold, and not pushing that 50. I mean, that seems out of the ordinary to me.
Well, what I'm more surprised is they didn't even, or did they sell off? I think they're going to get 30 gold of interest here. I think they just they locked in the 30 gold and then and they bought the Sand King afterwards. But even so, yes, this aggressive leveling up strategy is pretty common among warrior players, simply for the fact that at level 8 you get much higher odds on those tier 4 units. You go up from 10% in the shop to 15%, and with so many of the important units being tier 4, things like Tidehunter, things like well, I would say Kunkka, but he's out for today. Those units being so impactful at tier 4, you just want the higher odds of getting them.
And you can see here that I was going to wonder, like, that Bruiser just stood there forever, and then all of a sudden got pissed off and ran after the Shadow Demon.
Yeah, so whenever you have no other units, the Brill Bruiser realizes that he doesn't need to stand in melee range. Not entirely sure why.
Right.
He realizes that only at that point. I guess from a balance perspective, right? You know,
it would be too good otherwise.
There. Yeah, I guess so. But we see them going for a more savage focused build. So there's currently 3 savages with Bristleback, Sand King, and the Tusk. And I think we could easily see a replacement of the Treant Protector or the Io whenever there's a Lone Druid found. That's another one of those powerful tier 4 units that you can get up to 4 savages. And then in these long fights where there's lots of healing, lots of time that goes by in these fights, these savages just dominate in the late game, especially Bristleback, whose ability stacks up as well as his auto attack damage stacks up.
Yeah, and I haven't actually seen too much from Bristleback. Obviously, in Dota, it's quite a bit different, but, you know, I think Bristleback will hopefully, as we get some more units in his range, I guess, or in his alliance, maybe he'll see a little bit more play.
I think he's a very powerful unit, no doubt. I think he suffers a little bit from the fact that he's a new unit, and most of the new units suffer from the same situation where a lot of the players who played tons before the big update don't really know how to use it. They don't have like that internalized, like, oh, this is the exact priority I put on this unit. And they're like, I think it's good, but like they're still trying to figure out exactly where to fit him in every time. But no doubt he's a powerful unit.
And you see in that particular fight that Arc Warden is a real boss. And obviously Arc Warden has gone through quite a few changes, whereas clones cannot make clones because obviously that would be absurd. I can't believe it lasted as long as it did. But now it still seems that so many of these builds have a splash Arc Warden.
Right. The Warrior Alliance, as we talked about earlier, is just the strongest defensive alliance right now for your front line. But when you have defense, you need some offense to back that up. And you know, you could go with Savages, like we see Triple N doing here, which definitely ramps up over time, or they can pick up the Arc Warden, which we also saw, you know, sometimes you combine both even. And Arc Warden is just like the one-man army for damage dealing output. You know, you just give him any item and he's going to do good work.
And you can see that there is a Sacred Relic on this Arc Warden, which means there's going to be some damage incoming, and the opponent has 2 Arc Wardens. So you thought you were going to be able to get ahead of your opponent, but your opponent said, nah, I'm bringing 2. So we're going to see just if we can get through this front line. Unfortunately for Triple N, there's a level 2 Lone Druid over here, which means that there is a level 2 Spirit Bear, and level 2 Spirit Bear does not really mess around at all. And as you can see, it is healing. It is going toe-to-toe right now with Pudge.
I think we saw Triple N make a little bit of mistake in positioning on this fight. I think this fight could have been winnable with better positioning. We saw the Anesix got hooked initially, and if we watched the beginning of that fight, the Anesix companion actually summoned in the square A1 in the bottom left corner, where ideally you put Arc Warden so that the clone spawns to the left, rather Anesix summons did there. Because if something gets Pudge hooked, you want it to be that Arc Warden clone. You don't want it to be the Anesix. And it turns out the Arc Warden clone summoned forward, and that just messed the whole thing up because you got Anesix hooked first and then the real Arc Warden hooked second, and it was just a disaster. So I think they should make some adjustments to fix that, although I'm not seeing it yet. There we go. There's an adjustment.
Yeah, and that's the big deal here, is to make sure that you can choose where things spawn. So right now, when this battle starts, the Bruiser should be going to, is it A4? Is that how we're doing this? Like chess?
I'm doing chess notation, so the Arc Warden is currently in B1, and then he summons his clone to the left in A1 here.
All right, so that's A1. So A, B, C, D. So it looked like the Bruiser was going to get summoned to D1 there. I'd have to go back and check to make sure that's what happened, but I'm pretty sure that's how it worked. And you can see here, the Bruiser's doing work. It took a Tiny down, a level 2 Tiny, and now it's going to go heads up against the Slardar. Will fall, but that's okay because it will get resummoned, and the second summon is going to be much better.
Yeah, we kind of overshadowed that. They picked the talent despite all my rage, so that every time this Brill Bruiser dies, it
Look at it!
back with over double its attack damage.
Chunking!
It is so huge right
Wait, it's gonna die, but here comes the big baddie. Can it kill it? It's gonna get 2 shots in. Oh, it would have been so good.
So close.
If Anisix would have lived, because our big Bruiser would have been able to do some work. But again, let's look at his positioning. So what I was saying is that the clone for Arc Warden is going to go to A1, and then it looks like the Bruiser will go ahead and spawn to D1. And but I don't like it spawning to D1. I still think I would much rather it be spawning to D2 or D3, and D3 I think is actually insane.
Yeah, I think I personally would like move her up at least to the 3rd row and in line with all the rest of your warriors, and then so it has the chance to be up in the 4th row, like kind of the line of scrimmage in this fight, so that has the potential to engage the opponent's front line while Nesix is still a little bit well protected by the warrior.
Yeah, but wasn't there just like, so now you're gonna see another situation where it's gonna spawn now to
it doesn't do anything.
It will do literal nothing. Like there's a hook.
I'm always afraid of these fights against this particular creep round because, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of random targeting. There's a pudge hook. There's a tiny toss that like messes up your targeting, and I think they're going to lose because of this. Because that Brill Bruiser didn't do anything the whole fight, and I think with better positioning or better organization, they could have actually won that fight, and that's huge. That means there's no chance of a tier 4 item here.
Right,
like,
and that is actually horrid. That's horrid because there's no reason. Like, this is a simple matter of, if you can place this very simply to make sure that that Bruiser is frontline, and you're fighting against creeps. So even if you somehow were to make a mistake and you were to lose, the worst thing you can do is lose. But I think that if you have it, like right now, if we take Bristleback and we move him back to D1, and we take Tusk and move him to D2, the Bruiser will spawn on D3, and then it's frontline. Tusk and our Bristleback will continue to move forward like always, but now you have basically a whole extra unit that's going to be hanging out. And if you do it like this, who knows where it's... Okay, now it's going to go to D2. So I still like it being on D3.
Agreed. I think that there's some optimizations here. We see they actually have the IO with the Claymore on the bench, so a little bit of inefficiency there. Maybe some time pressure, a little bit of panic, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not getting the right units organized.
And you can see here that the Bruiser has not swung his hammer or axe or whatever he's holding yet, and right in front of him, Pudge is getting the beatdown of his life from the Treant and the Tusk, and now Brill Bruiser is going to actually be able to go ahead and take down this Tusk. Will it be able to take one step forward and get this Arc Warden? It will not. It's just going to get beat down from the Arc Warden, the Veno, and an Enchantress. It's going to fall, and now we're going to go ahead and get the second spawn up. But unfortunately, Anisix is going to fall, and that means that it's going to be a loss for Triple N. It looks like there is just a little bit of board mismanagement going on here, and that's all.
These fights are absolutely winnable. I think these fights are absolutely winnable with a little bit better positioning or fixing the units with the item, the IO without the item. But yeah, I think we definitely see that the Brill Bruiser just not being effective because the positioning is not adapting to it properly.
But again, this is Triple N is now at 45, and that is middle of the pack, level 9, economy not there. So here's the problem, is when you start making these aggressive warrior pushes and spending all your gold, you run into maybe a NRV, what's his, NRVN5? Nervin? All right, so you run into Nervin, who is now level 8, 50 gold, 78 health, and is the only player in the lobby on the 50 economy. So either A, he knows something that we don't, or B, he's making a mistake. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So if I'm in Triple N's position here, I'm looking at like the texture of the scoreboard actually, and seeing I'm in 4th place right now. There's 3 people above me who all have win streaks. You see, there's a bunch of fire on the left side of that scoreboard, and you have to kind of think. I've got very little gold. I've got reasonable life total. My composition's not horrible. The question is, what is your goal for this game now that it's kind of developed enough? I don't think if you're sitting in the Triple N's position right now, you're thinking, I'm going to win this game 1st place. You have to be thinking, I'm going to try to make 4th, maybe 3rd place.
Right.
And kind of manage your economy, manage your game plan around that being the best possible outcome. And just try to ensure you lock that in rather than trying to shoot for the moon and possibly failing and going out much lower.
Well, and what I'm seeing now from Triple N with this Bruiser is I tend to use the Bruiser more aggressive because when I have Despite All My Rage, I want it to continue to die and just do that.
Absolutely.
Now, in this last battle, though, what I saw is the Bruiser ended up being a target buddy. And the opposing Troll Warlord was just going ham on it, and it just wasn't doing anything, which basically gave enough time for Anesix to summon the demon, and then the demon just basically cleaned everything up. So maybe that's the thought process. I also am not terribly fond of putting 2 Arc Wardens together, and there's only 1 square available to place it. I like to know exactly where things are going to go. So, but that's a nitpicky kind of thing. That's
sure. We can see like their front line is going to walk forward, right? There's melee units in front, so there's going to be space around them. But actually, I don't know exactly how the logic works, but if the Arc Warden on A2 summons backwards before units move,
right,
in theory, Arc Warden on B1
doesn't spawn.
Be locked out.
Right.
Yeah, I think the way it works is basically, it looks like everybody moves at the same time, but actually on like a processor level, I think it just randomly determines who moves or who acts first, like millisecond before each other. And I think that's a possibility.
And I've definitely had that happen where I put a couple of Arc Wardens too close together, and one of them just didn't spawn a clone, and that's not great, and it feels real bad. And here we go. This is another situation where you see the Bruiser acting as a target dummy. It took down a lot, and it's demon versus demon action, and it looks like Triple N's demon's gonna fall first, but that's okay because there is a team of Arc Wardens going and splashing damage everywhere.
Yeah, Arc Warden, even
it's so good.
Star is so incredibly powerful.
Look at the damage! 10,000 damage from one and 8,000 from another.
That's absolutely insane. And just a 1-star, whenever they get combined in 2-star, they'll have another spot to throw something else in, or find another 1-star Arc Warden, and
which is just fine too.
So whenever I was saying, maybe they should be looking at trying to shoot for just top 3 or top 4, well, the other people's win streaks have subsided, and they've moved up into 2nd place. They just beat Meh, who was now in 3rd place. And, maybe there's a shot. They're rebuilding their economy. Whenever you're on a winning streak, you can afford to not spend your gold quite as aggressively because you're kind of stabilized. You're not panicking. And maybe they do move up.
Yeah, and here you're going to see this is a desperate opponent. Level 8, no gold, 6 health. Can they take out these assassins quickly? Look like Morphling is going to fall. It's going to be able to try to turn over to Slark and see if the Bruiser can take out Slark. He does. Bruiser moves over to the other Morphling, takes him out, takes an Eidolon out, is going to keep moving, doesn't find anybody, looking around. Oh, wait, found somebody. You, eat this, fan, a PA. And now, here comes the demon. And PDSPB is going to be knocked out in 8th place with only 1 point. And the way that the scoring system works here is 1st place is 10 and 2nd is 7. So there's an additional 3 points that you get. So getting 8th is not the worst because you can make up for it by getting a 1st in the next, but 8th never feels good.
Absolutely, that is definitely disastrous to have that assassin build. We didn't get to talk too much about it, but that assassin build was like they got the 6 assassins, they got like the units that they wanted, but they didn't have any of the really good parts that make assassins like put them ahead of the rest. You need 3-star assassins because 3-star Slark or 3-star Phantom Assassin is just so dominant. And you need good items, which we didn't really see them have too many, like of the Mask of Madnesses or Moon Shards or other type of really powerful items to put them ahead. And they just kind of slowly bled out and take 8th place here.
And it's really rough for a assassin player to not have like that glut of level 3s because they were on level 8. When I saw a level 8 player that had no gold and was on 5 health, I just assumed that they probably had 1 or 2 level 3 units. They were going to drop in like a level 3 PA or level 3 Slark with a mom on it, something nuts. And then when their actual army spawned, it was just like, oh, you actually have nothing. You have nothing. So, and that just happens sometimes. And if you look into the lobby, I don't know if maybe there was another assassin player that kind of hurt them, but it doesn't appear that there was another assassin player.
There wasn't. It just seems to be some level of, I don't know, mismanagement or just bad luck, but did not find what really got assassins together. I've been playing a ton of assassins. I played it like constantly yesterday, and it does really depend on those big power spikes of good items and 3-star units. And if you don't get them, it's rough.
Yeah. Now, can we talk a little bit about the difference between going with the demon? I always call it a demon, but it's a demonic golem, or going with enthrall. Like, I always choose enthrall. I just love enthrall. But why would you go with one or the other?
It depends on the damage profile of your team. So whenever an Essex is going to cast an enthrall on a target, it's a relatively short window where you need to kill that enthrall target, but your entire army is taunted to it, so they're going to go out of their way to try to kill it. So what makes enthrall a valuable choice is whenever you have enough sustained damage to be able to kill that enthrall target relatively consistently, something like Arc Warden does that very well, or you have burst damage and target access, so they don't spend a lot of time walking up to it. So if you're playing assassins or perhaps hunters, I could go for enthrall in that case. In this particular build, you do have the Arc Wardens, but a lot of your damage is going to come from sustained, like slow and steady damage of melee warriors like Doom or Slarder here. And in that case, sometimes you just want the Golem, who's going to be better in those longer fights, as just an additional tank up in front of you, if you can't get to the enthrall targets.
Got it. And here you see, it is very close. There's a level 3 Treant that is going to fall, and now the level 2 Tusk is trying to go ahead up with our Bruiser. Gives him a Walrus Punch, but the Bruiser is going to win that. Slardar level 2 is going heads up with the Witch Doctor, and is going to lose there as well. And as you said, in this bottom right corner, you can see the Demonic Golem is fighting, but it does go ahead and... oh, it does survive the Spirit Bearer, and now it's on to fighting a chickened out Pudge, and Pudge retargeted over to the level 2 Arc Warden, and that is going to be his demise. But this is a lot closer. There is another demon incoming, and look at the Bruiser, huge, ready to smack down everybody, and now he's going to take a rest because he knows that the Demonic Golem has got this.
Yeah, that Demonic Golem definitely wins out in those long fights, especially if you cast a second one. It can tank a pretty decent amount of time, especially with the Essex heal coming out. And if you have good DPS behind it, it's just another really, really resilient tank.
Yeah, it just gives you that extra damage you're going to need. And being able to have this Rasta, and as well as the Witch Doctor, giving that troll bonus was also very nice.
Actually, they've moved away from that, and they've moved into dragons, of all things.
That is so random. You have a Dragon Knight
2-star. I've rarely seen dragons played in this patch outside of mage builds, but whenever they first changed Viper away from an assassin and into a scaled, my first thought was, this might unlock Dragon Knight into warrior compositions, because previously you would want scaled in warriors, just because warriors provide armor, but they don't provide magic resist. So you want some magic resist to protect against mages. And warriors also need a damage dealer, so Viper plus Dragon Knight seems like it solves both of those problems. We never really saw that pan out, but here it's working pretty well for him.
Well, and as you say that, there are multiple level 2 Arc Wardens from our opponent, and the front line is getting shredded currently, and it looks like this level 2 Tidehunter is already going to be taking out our last hope for Triple N in this round. Triple N now at 27 life, taking a huge 18-point loss.
Well, the big problem there was that the opponent also thought to play Dragon Knight plus Viper, and they just had the better end of it. The opponent, Sanctus Hawk, there is also running a 2-star Viper and a 2-star Dragon Knight. Has slightly worse items, has just a Sacred Relic rather than the Moon Shard on the Dragon Knight. But it turns out with the Hunter bonus between their Marana and their Medusa, as well as a Drow Ranger, was just able to have a little bit higher damage output in those fights, because that Hunter bonus definitely deals good sustained damage.
And you can see there are not any Lords in our lobby. Everyone is still working their way up, grinding those out.
Yeah, after the reset, it actually takes quite a while to grind back up. I mean, I play a lot. I stream almost every day, and I'm only Big Boss 2, just because pretty much everybody who was a Lord, you're playing against them, and it's, only you have to be consistently beating up Lords just to climb from boss 5 to big boss 1 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I was gonna say for me, I am in like Lieutenant 5, and I'm like, man, these lobbies are a lot harder than I remember Lieutenant lobbies used to be. Like,
Yeah,
and it's random, but I know it's because everybody's still doing the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah, it definitely is a struggle after the reset with everyone trying to climb back up. But over time, it'll kind of even itself out. People get up to where they're supposed to be. But it's still only a week or two since the big update. So give it time; they'll get up there.
Yeah, and now we see that the Bruiser's doing some work here, being able to put a lot of damage onto Treant, and now it's still standing around, not really doing much, but the back line level 2 Arc Wardens are putting just so much damage down, especially for the opposing team, which does not have an Arc Warden, and usually you find that if one team has Arc Wardens and the other one doesn't, well, it gets a little bit snowballing.
Certainly can, especially once the Arc Warden pushes down the front line, and if you don't have a way to access that Arc Warden, like an assassin or something like that, once your front line goes down, there's no coming back from the opposing Arc Warden. It just does too much damage, and if you can't stop them from dealing that damage, you're gonna have a bad time.
And Josh looks like he's been knocked out in 7th place. So we can see here, all of these players it is anyone's game. Triple N,
close.
Yeah, Triple N is in first place, 27 life, but second and third are both at 24, and only one player really has, well, I'd say, Nervin has had previously a bunch of gold, went and decided to go up to level 10, and then Triple N has 40 gold in the bank, but is really happy to just kind of sit here for a second and maybe rebuild this to 50 and go into the creep round 30.
That would make a lot of sense. Whenever you can't possibly be eliminated on these rounds right before creep rounds, either because you have so much life total or you have an Aegis in the case of Triple N here.
It has both?
It's often correct. Yeah, if you have both. It's often best to just say, I don't care the result of this coming round. I'm going to just bank my gold, maximize the income, and then after the creep round, that's when I reroll everything, and you just get a couple extra gold out of that whole arrangement, and potentially you find that one last upgrade that you need after that creep round.
Yeah, it doesn't look very good right now unless we can hope to have this DK, but the DK gets scythed into Miss Piggy and back, but right now, are they going to be able to get this fight? Because the Demonic Golem is doing their best to hold the crew down, and Demonic Golem is taking the team, putting it all on his back, and will he be able to do enough? Because right now, gonna fall, the Bruiser is still sitting there, looking, doing nothing.
The Bruiser loses.
God! Alright, but here's another demon incoming, and this should hopefully be able to clean it up, but there is an enthralled target. I can't quite tell what this is. It's a level 2 Shadow Demon got enthralled, but Bruiser takes that out as well. And now, Bruiser is by himself.
I think the Bruiser wins this now.
I think so too. It's gonna just
supercharged.
Look. He's gonna can he chunk him? Can he chunk him? Oh, it's a draw.
Took too long. There is a timer on the rounds, and that fight, just very low damage output units plus the healing from an Essex just took them to the timer, took them to the draw.
Yeah, and that it's everyone is going with sympathy pains here. Let's talk about sympathy pains and why do you want that?
Sympathy pains is just very straightforward, right? It's just a simple doubling of your damage of that ability. The other ones in that tier are admittedly rather low impact. We see actually 322 is picked up heavy wounds that says the target affected by pure pain can't be healed. But I mean, everyone is running an Essex, but outside of that, there's not a lot of healing on these compositions, so I'm not exactly thrilled with that idea. It just seems like pure pain, or sympathy pains rather, is just a straightforward, good damage increase. Don't need to think too hard about it. It does what it does. Good default choice.
And now you can see in our lobby, nobody has any real economy. Looks like only Nervin is at level 10. Everyone else is going to have to work a little bit in order to be able to get to that level 10, if that even happens.
Well, Triple N has leveled up. It will level up as soon as the round ticks over. They've pumped in the gold. And so now they'll be able to put in a second Dragon Knight here.
Nervin picks up a level 2 Alchemist, and you can see that Sancho's Hawk is streaking. And what is the choice here? Is it Dagon?
I hate all of these.
Just I was gonna say,
go to the next round.
Yeah,
I want none of the above.
Pick the BKB. Oh, but an expanded roster for Angel.
Yeah, that's the big problem. Is sometimes even with a smuggler, you have the chance of getting a tier 5 item, but sometimes you just get 4 of the worst options of tier 4 items, and it feels really bad. BKB is obviously much more impactful if there are opposing mage compositions or magic damage dealers, but not really in this game. There's a lot of mostly physical damage output, so it's not that appealing.
Yeah, though there's just so much that could have been picked up there, like Heart of Tarrasque. I mean, like, that's why we picked Smuggler, but in that case, it didn't happen. Look at all the units on the board.
That's 11 units.
Come with it.
Wait, is that?
It looked like 11. No, it was the tombstone looked like another unit.
Okay, it's only 10. This isn't the one with the expanded roster, but still. On one hand, you think, oh, so many units, I'm going to get crushed. And then on the other hand, you're like, more units for Dragon Knight to splash damage on
Yeah, more to breathe fire all over your face. And the second summoning of Bruiser comes in, takes out the level 2 Tidehunter, is going to be able to go ahead and take out this Spirit Bear. Is currently... Okay, I was going to say, is going to just walk 1 square over and die. But that's all right. We don't mind getting the second one in. But where is our demon? There's a demon. And where is the demon going to go? Has demon advantage because it's going to be our demon versus their demon plus, but now it's Lone Druid doing his best impersonation of a unit that could take out the demon, and he does. And Bro Bruiser smashes the opposing demon, and now we get another one. And will we run out of time again? Here's another Spirit Bear.
Oh my goodness! I get another Spirit
Bear. I don't know. I have never seen that happen. And here we go. This is the 4th Bruiser, and I think the 3rd demon, and another draw.
So that Lone Druid had a Bracers of Desperation, so once he got low enough on life, he again. But yeah, these fights, very long, very, very long, and we see that the value in the sustained damage from the Arc Wardens was really what was carrying that. The Arc Warden with the Skull Basher just kept on putting out damage throughout that entire fight. And it's the only reason it was that close. I honestly, early on, I thought Nervin was gonna overrun Triple N here.
Yeah, so did I. Oh, I just heard Ace of something.
Oh, hello.
I heard
Mr. Troll Warlord.
Well.
What brings you here? So that was another thing I was going to point out, that Nervin had a Troll Warlord, which was doing a real number on the Dragon Knight 2-star, who kind of walked up in an awkward spot and got himself attacked by the Troll Warlord. And that's a big point of these. But there's a huge Chrono Cube of a Faceless Void jumping in, stunning the whole team for 4 seconds. Will it be enough to turn the tide? It doesn't quite look like it. The Troll Warlord's still untouched. The Arc Warden is still going strong. Both Dragon Knights, the sustained damage is really powerful in these fights.
And the opposing player has 2 Troll Warlords, but they don't seem to be doing the melting that you normally would see these Troll Warlords do. And the Bruiser, being the target buddy he is, takes that, and now we've got 2v1 on the Troll Warlords. And is it possible? Oh, the opposing Troll Warlord retargeted, so Triple N's Troll Warlord is able to just continue the damage and take out that Troll Warlord, and now it's going to be a victory for Triple N.
So the N-Gel here did have an Aegis, so they're not eliminated yet. But the real MVP of that fight was, we were talking about the Troll Warlord so much, it was the Dragon Knight on the back line. The 2-star Dragon Knight with Moonshard dealt more than double the damage of anybody else. Or almost double the damage.
Look at DK, 23,000 damage.
That's insane. I normally wouldn't expect a Dragon Knight in these warrior compositions, but they're really making it work. The name of the game here is the sustained damage. You already have tankiness from warriors. You already have some healing from an Essex to go make the fights go long. The question is, where's the damage going to come from? And if your opponents are just relying on Arc Warden or just relying on Troll, if you're playing Arc Warden and Troll and Dragon Knight, you're
give it to me, baby. Yeah, they just got so much damage. And as you can see, the opposing player has the same type of comp. There's a level 2 DK, a level 1 DK, also the Viper, and there's also a level 2 Mirana that did jump onto the right side of your screen. But can this Bruiser be the difference here as the Tidehunter looks like it overextends a little bit, gets taken down? Now, the second coming of the Bro Bruiser is about to fall, but Anisix, will she be able to survive all of... I was going to say, she's exposed now, but the Bruiser does come out, but they're both down now, and it is going to probably be a loss here as Sanchez Hawk is going to finish off Triple N here, and how much damage will it be? 16 damage.
16. So Triple N is still in good position.
Still has Aegis.
Still has an Aegis. Still has, essentially 2 more rounds to give. We're about to hit round 34, so guaranteed to make it to the round 35. And who knows if a big tier 5 item can come up there and turn the tides here. Obviously, we talked about how bad or low impact the Black King bar is in this particular game. And we see
Angel's out.
So Triple N locked in for top 3, at least, after that relatively bad early start with a bunch of losing streaks right off the bat.
Yeah, and you can also see, there's a level 2 Troll Warlord.
That's so huge.
The sky has opened up and God has blessed you. That's right.
Give him the moon shard, and he goes crazy.
You thought that Troll Warlord previously, which was doing a lot of damage, was good. Just you wait. Just you wait and see the kind of damage output you're going to see from not only DK, which is going to be nuts, but Troll Warlord is about to go ham.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned that Sanchez Hawk was just had Triple N's number here. Had lost 2 times against Triple N, or Triple N had lost twice against Sanchez Hawk, and I was just afraid that he's never going to be able to punch through that. But with that Troll Warlord upgrade, your fortunes can certainly change.
Well, now, whenever Troll Warlord looks at something, about 2 seconds later, it gets melted down. And that is what you're literally hoping for. It looks like the Troll Warlord ended up getting stunned, and now it is the target of the opposing Arc Wardens. And now, this is the problem. Are you going to be able to have the sustained damage? And no, Sanchez Hawk still has enough to put real big numbers, making the Aegis pop. So now, vulnerable is Triple N as well as Nervin.
I think a big problem of that fight was the initial phases. We see how low damage Dragon Knight dealt, and that's because initially the Dragon Knight was actually locked in. The Witch Doctor did not move forward, and neither did the Troll Warlord. So the Dragon Knight actually just stood there looking like a fool for a few seconds until Pudge Hook brought somebody in for him to hit.
Yeah, and this is continually this game, and even though Triple N is in top 3, things like that, there's obviously there's room for improvement here. I think that the placement that we've seen throughout the match has been pretty suspect, and that there are opportunities to make sure that you get consistent battling out of your crew. And that's normally the name of the game. We have a lot of RNG that goes on in this, but one of the ways that we can deal with RNG is how we place our units. And we can really kind of prioritize how things are going to happen. And, I think that there is some room for that to improve in the next game for Triple N.
There definitely is. Positioning is definitely a complex topic, but there are definitely some general guidelines or heuristics that you can use. And especially when you see the fights, if you're sticking with the same formation and you see something go wrong in the fights, you need to adapt to that. You need to make some small adjustment one way or another. And here we see they have the option of Divine Rapier. They took it. Oh boy.
2 Divine. Hey, look, I've played a lot of Underlords, and I rarely, if ever, what was that, 2 DKs? Oh, baby. I very rarely get to put a Divine Rapier. I've got to put it on a level 2 Troll Warlord. I have never gotten to put it on an Arc Warden. So I'm ready. I'm ready to see the stupidity right now.
Yeah, I haven't got to play with Divine Rapier too much. Only really since the big update made tier 5 items a bit more common if I got it. I had it on a Templar Assassin the other day, and those crits were massive with the Assassin bonus, but I never had it on an Arc Warden.
Here we go. I'm very
curious to see the damage numbers on this Arc Warden come the end of the fight.
Arc Warden is already on 2,500, 3,000. Here we go. Big time numbers, and now here's the clone coming back, and you're going to see things just vanish. But the problem here, playing against the ghost of Sanchez Hawk, can the actual Sanchez Hawk take out Nervin? Right now the Arc Wardens are just too powerful, too much damage, 15,000 damage and counting, and is going to finish 17,000 damage from one Arc Warden.
That's pretty substantial. It's not as disproportionate as we saw earlier, mainly because damage is coming from so many sources, and there's only so much health total on your opponent's board. So Arc Warden couldn't have done, like, if they didn't have the other damage dealers, maybe that Arc Warden deals 30k damage in a longer fight. But because there's 2 Dragon Knight and a Troll Warlord, there's just no health left to rack up the DPS meters on.
Yeah.
So now we see it's down to just 2, Sanchez Hawk and Triple N. And so far this game, Sanchez Hawk has had Triple N's number, but I keep on saying there's been upgrades after upgrades, and will it be enough to turn the tide here?
Yeah,
Pun kind of intended, because
I mean, yeah, the rapier on Arc Warden is nuts, but there is a level 2 Medusa on the other side, and here we go. Heads up in the middle. It's going to be Tidehunter versus Tidehunter. Triple N's Tidehunter does go ahead and fall, but there is an Arc Warden that gets hooked. Our other Arc Warden does go ahead and get hooked on the other side, but was that the clone or was that the original? Looks like that was the clone, so here comes another Arc Warden with the Divine Rapier, able to go ahead and knock out that Pudge, targeting the Medusa. Medusa's down. DK for the opposing DK is down, and now it's just a matter of, can we keep this snowball going? And it looks like they are going to be able to.
There's a really key adjustment there that kind of plays into what we've been talking about this whole game about the positioning. At the very last second, they moved the Tidehunter and the Pudge forward 1 step, and that was so critical because the opposing Tidehunter never got to walk forward. The opposing Tidehunter has a 2 square radius, and if you just lock him in place and get his ult to cast right in the middle of the board rather than let him walk forward onto your side, the Dragon Knights were not hit by the Tidehunter. If they had left Tidehunter and Pudge back a step, the opposing Tidehunter could walk forward and stun all of their damage dealers. Potentially, the fight goes the other way.
Yeah, and what we also saw is that if you go ahead and stun the Bruiser, who cares? That's just irrelevant. You're not hitting the things you want to hit, which is the bottom left. You want to be able to hit A2, A1, or excuse me, A2, and then B1 and B2, which is where the DKs and the Arc Wardens are. And this could be our final battle. I don't believe that there's another opposing DK. Mirana goes ahead and gets hooked, but doesn't matter. She goes ahead and jumps out. Now, Tusk is a little bit overextended into the Warrior, into the Viper, gets taken down. But now this doesn't look quite as good for Triple N. The opposing DK is still alive, still able to go ahead and get this damage in. But here we go. Are our Arc Wardens going to be able to use this Divine Rapier and take out this front line? They go ahead, they remove Viper from the equation. Now they're gonna go ahead and turn to DK, but the original Arc Warden does get knocked out, and now we're only left with the copy, and the crash comes in. The Bruiser takes it out, but this is going to be game. Sanchez Hawk steals the Divine Rapier and first place.
Wow, what a game. That was very close, very back and forth, and 2 fairly similar builds that I thought were pretty interesting, with the Dragon Knight coming out on both sides, and wow, just coming right down to the wire. Small differences in those fights could have swung it either way for sure.
Yeah, and Triple N has to be very happy with a second place. That will be 7 points. Sanchez Hawk will come with 10. Nervin in third, and then continuing down from there. We are playing 3 rounds today. We're going to take a quick break, but after our break, we will be back with round 2. So see you then.
Of course you picked me. We will rule from the shadows.
We are back. It is round 2, and we are going to start with our winner. Sanchez Hawk took first place in round 1, 10 big points, and well on their way to securing a victory in today's tournament.
Yeah, what a game to come out there. Two fairly similar builds at the end. We saw Sanchez Hawk going for a little bit more of a hunter-focused strategy, whereas Triple N was just jamming in more damage dealers, the Troll Warlord, the Arc Wardens, the Dragon Knights. And it turns out the Hunters, in the end, were just a touch stronger in those long, drawn-out fights.
Yeah, and you don't feel bad about getting a early second place in one of these tournaments. The only issue here is there's only 3 rounds. So if you really thought that you had a opportunity to win that, which I think was in the realm of possibility, then you do feel like you may have missed an opportunity to get you those extra points that are necessary to maybe take home first place.
Yeah, especially since we have this top-heavy point structure where first place will get 10 points per game, and then second through 8th will get 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A linear scoring from second down to 8th, but then the first place gets that bonus. They get the full 10 points out of the deal. So that's definitely like the hardest difference. Like if you go second or third, minor difference. But the difference between first and second is a big.
Yeah, it just feels, I mean, it doesn't feel terribly bad. It just is a matter of being honest with yourself and saying, did I really have a chance to win this? And I think that based on that comp, I'm pretty sure that Sanchez Hawk had the better build that time, but you never know. And that's what's really cool about this game is when you get deep into it and you understand how positioning works, you understand just the little things about adding a certain unit to my board. Like in that case, we can see that the meta went into this DK Viper for the damage, as opposed to where it used to be pretty much just like Arc Ward. Just throw an Arc Ward and see what happens. And that is very, very good to know for the lobby, because now they're going to maybe be able to add a little bit of that, because I think adding DK Viper to pretty much any lineup is pretty simple.
Yeah, it's a two units for lots of damage and possibly completes the scaled bonus, assuming you have either Slarter or Tidehunter, both of which are very commonly played units right now. There aren't too many mages being played. We didn't see any played that last game, but that scaled bonus is still relevant. There's still AoE magic damage from opposing Dragon Knights, or I believe a Nessix, her ability deals magic damage, the pure pain. Oh, that's pure damage, right? I should have known that. But there are other incidental sources of magic damage from some of the units, so it's not irrelevant.
Right. It's definitely something that isn't going to hurt. And for now, we're going to see a mismatch, just kind of whatever, for this crew. Level 2, an early level 2 Shadow Demon, which definitely is a very nice thing to have. And then you just see an Axe and a Slardar, and it's just going to be a matter of, okay, well, what can I get level 2 now?
Yeah, we see them picking up Bloodseeker, and they just sell off the Bloodseeker. I was going to say Bloodseeker is, I think it has overtaken Shadow Shaman as like the worst unit in the game. I think there was an oversight by the developers. I mean, I don't have confirmation from them, but I think it was just an oversight whenever they doubled every health total, and they nerfed the other percentage-based damage. So percentage health total from, say, Enigma got cut in half, so that his raw damage numbers were still identical.
Right.
And they did not change the percentage health damage from Bloodseeker. He still ticks down at the same rate as he used to, which means he dies way too fast in these fights.
Yeah, he like just jumps in and immediately just gets just dead.
Yeah, it's not close. I think that was an oversight, and I hope they take a look at that, because in his current state, he's essentially unplayable.
Yeah, you have to have a really, really good reason. Like, you got an early level 2, you put a helm on it or something, and then even then, it's like, still doesn't feel that great.
Yeah, you're trying to get away from him as soon as possible.
Right, like the first opportunity to turn this into anything, I will.
But we see them move away from it as expected. They picked up Wind Ranger instead, who's a very reasonable hunter. We saw some people dabbling in 3 hunter builds last game, and you know, if you get an early 2-star Wind Ranger, that could be a very strong start in that direction.
And you saw a level 2 Axe and a level 2 Rasta for Triple N there. And now we're still in our very, very early game. We do have a demon and a I always call it undead. And it is just the role player in me that knows that it's undead, but it is definitely not called undead in this game.
Well, it used to be called undead back in the
Way back in the day.
the precursor to Dota Underlords. But yes, the
Heartless.
The Heartless bonus is extremely powerful in the early game. We actually see Saint Hawk leveled up here early, which we didn't see them do last game. We didn't see Triple N do last game. Saw them stay at that lower level for a little while. And just leveling up here means that you're gonna hit level 4 right now, and then you're gonna hit level 5 next turn just naturally.
And the question will be, is this level 2 Shadow Demon able to get over the level 1 Shadow Demon and the level 2 Rasta? And so far, so good.
Yeah, it's gonna be close. I think the Shadow Demon's gonna take it with that big ultimate, just one shot in.
Oh,
a huge chunk to that Rasta. He was slowed for the 5 seconds, and then boom, just took that big nuke right at the end.
I've never seen a chicken walk so slow, but it worked out just fine. Sanchez Hawk with the victory.
Yeah, it was looking a little dicey, but that level up really came into matter this game, where you've got you still have the front line and the axe and the Slarder, but the extra Heartless just puts it over the top. You keep the wins going, has 2 wins in a row, doesn't have a win streak yet, but now you're level 5, now you get the Wind Ranger in there. A win streak is a very real possibility here after the start.
And that's all you're looking for really early game, right? It doesn't necessarily matter what your particular lineup is, as long as it's strong enough to just give a small win streak, something like that. Just don't bleed out, and then you can maybe transition into something stronger.
Yeah, and we saw them play Shadow Demon until the very end of last game. It's a unit that typically you see one cost units like Shadow Demon, like Drow Ranger, like Venomancer or Axe are just not that good in the late game, just because their stats are naturally very low. But Shadow Demon's a little bit of an exception. He has very strong alliances. Heartless and Demon are very powerful at all stages in the game, and his ability is just so massively impactful. That slow is essentially like a 5-second stun, really, based on how slow they do anything. So you definitely see that utility used throughout the entire game.
And that's a lesson for me, because I had no idea that Shadow Demon was so powerful.
Yeah, he really is very commonly played. I mean, sometimes if you're running like Pudge and Drow Ranger, you don't really have space for him if you're running a more hunter-focused build around your warriors. But if you're not running hunters, Shadow Demon is a great pickup. Obviously, he's great early game, but you can play him throughout the entire game, no problem.
Well, I mean, that is a good lesson for me to help get myself into the big boss land where everyone else is. But those are the little things that when you watch these streams, you get to see things that maybe you would never see at your level. Like if you're working and you're in like Smuggler or whatever it is, and you're just trying to get up into the bigger levels, these are the little things that you can use over your opponents to help you have consistent results.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go out and criticize Saint Hawk's positioning here just a little bit. We saw last round, based on this kind of corner formation, there was an opposing tiny toss that tossed the Slarder into the corner, and for 5 or 6 seconds, that Slarder was just stuck there in the corner because all the ranged units wouldn't move out away from it. Actually got bailed out because there was a Pudge hook that hooked the trapped Slarder.
Right.
So that didn't work out too well, but you gotta think, well, everyone's running tiny in this early game. Don't be this stacked up to make yourself vulnerable to the tiny, and it may end up punishing them here because they were stacked for that first tiny toss.
Well, and you can see here that Chicken ended up being cooked there, but the level 2 Shadow Demon did not target the Rasta, and because of such, ends up dying.
Yeah, once the NSX goes down on one side or the other, if you don't immediately win the fight, the healing is going to win out on the other side.
Yeah, and that's what's so good about Pudge, and that's what we talk about is having early Pudge advantages. One player can hook the Underlord from the other player, and you're just kind of stuck, because now they're going to literally just kill your Underlord, and now you're down healing, you're going to be down whatever unit you decided to go with, if it's the Archer or the Bruiser, those are all gone, and then also possibly your demons. So it's just real bad.
Definitely. I see that they actually sold off the Beastmaster they had on the bench here to try to get more gold to get up to interest. And if we're looking at their shop, they have the 2 IOs here, and they just bought a Treant. So it looks like you're going to have some kind of a Brute Alliance active here soon with the Treant and the Axe. Now, the Brute Alliance is a little
mediocre.
Well, it tries to be both an offensive and defensive alliance, and I can sympathize with that design that, oh, here's one that's not purely offensive and not purely defensive. The big problem, though, is that most of the damage dealing in the game comes from ranged units. That's just the simple balance of things right now between Arc Warden, between Hunters, between Dragon Knights. Most of the damage comes from ranged units. And that means your brutes are never going to apply their defensive half of their synergy onto those ranged units. And it just leaves it being a rather mediocre offensive alliance in that case, and is just all around kind of lackluster.
Yeah, I've never been trying to go out of my way to play brutes. I mean, that's just the honest truth.
I tried the first day or two as we were trying to figure it out. Like, I love Magnus for the first day or two, but then I'm like, this actually doesn't work.
Girl, this is not what I thought it was.
Oops.
And we can see here, for Sanchez Hawk has Io, Treant, Axe. And now it's a matter of, will you be able to survive? Because right now, this doesn't look that great.
Well, if you get a 2-star Treant, 2-star Treant does...
Right, it's always...
everything.
You're like...
Oh, watch this tiny toss.
Whoop.
And that Treant's dead.
And enjoy stunning...
And so is Io, essentially.
Yeah, it's going to be... What is... Io... And then Io gets tossed. Where is the damage going to come from for Sanchez Hawk? It doesn't look like they have a lot going here.
Nope, that Io got killed before it could get its relocate off to get the resurrect, and yeah, it's just gonna fall down. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but better positioning, spread out. Everyone's running Tiny, and you are getting punished by Tiny every single round here. Some of these fights were winnable if you played around Tiny a little bit better.
Well, and what's the... I mean, I guess the question for me is, what are you protecting against by doing it this way, as opposed to putting it frontline? Can you talk to that a little bit?
So there's some logic to trying to defend against assassins, but there's no assassins this early on in the game. As a general matter, when I'm playing, in my early game, almost all of my units are either spread out or closer to the front, just so that, because tiny tosses are so prevalent. And, you know, later in the game, you can make the argument that, oh, I need to corner stack because assassins are going to be out there or whatever. But even then, if you don't see too many assassins, you can feel free to spread out more. It's not like, oh, I'm going to put, if you move, like, say, Axe and Io over 2 steps to the right, both of them shift 2 steps to the right, and then move an Essex 1 step to the right. That doesn't, like, substantially hurt your combat prowess at all, but it makes you more open against opposing tiny tosses.
And Tiny is very easy to pick up. We're talking about a 1 gold unit that is not essential, but is very, very good in the warrior build, which is also something that's very popular, but it can be put into a lot of other comps. And without Kunkka here, it's, like you said, one of, if not like the default warrior or, you know, primordial to go to.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of argument to say you want to stack around this Drow Ranger to maximize the precision aura, but
let's be real.
That's a 10% attack speed. Like, that's half a Gloves of Haste. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say
what it's costing you to be that much more vulnerable to a tiny toss. Like, okay, put Drow Ranger and Shadow Demon together, sure. And maybe you move a Nessex over so that maybe her minion moves over that way, but then she herself is not caught in the stun. But other than that, like, there's no reason to be this close.
And here we see an upgrade to Drow. So now we have level 2 Drow, level 1 Wind Ranger, a E6 Io, Axe, Treant, and a level 2 Shadow Demon. Would love to see that third Io. Oh my.
Oh yes. There was a pair of Ios in one pack, and that's why you got both of them at the same time. And hopefully it doesn't turn out to be a bait where you just get the two Ios and then never find a third.
That would feel so bad
when you do get it. The opponent here, 2x Josh, has a 3-star Enchantress. Well, it's a 2-star Enchantress that's been upgraded, but still.
It's still 3-star, and that's an early 3-star. This is round 11, and the 3-star Enchantress is going to fall right now, and you would think, but oh, good. Obviously, Io didn't bring that back. It ended up bringing back the level 2 Tiny, which is not good either, and now level 2 Tiny is
gonna take over.
Yeah, Io is going to make this Tiny just a little bit too strong. Shadow Demon is going to do his best to hold off Tiny, but it is not going to work.
Yeah, there's no beating that particular composition, no matter what your formation was. There's just too many star levels. The pair of 2-star druids giving you a 3-star druid this early on, even if it's just the Enchantress, which is probably the worst one to get up to 3-star there. But even
It's still a 3-star.
It wins out those long fights. Yeah.
Yeah.
It deals tons of damage. I mean, she does 200 some damage with an auto attack. Compare that to all of the units on Sandra's Hawk's board, which is like 100 damage at most. So
yeah,
she does pretty good damage.
She still hits like a truck.
Yeah.
And should be lucky that wasn't like a level 3 Treant. I think like a level 3 Treant, I don't even know that.
Oh, you just get up and walk away.
Right. I was going to say, like, I don't even think he has the damage to even kill a level 3 Treant, unless like every unit on his board was targeting it. But that's,
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you saw a level 3 Treant, that could probably 1v5 or 1v6.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
If it wasn't for Shadow Demon's ultimate casting on just a single target, that would be the one saving grace. But otherwise, I think if that Shadow Demon wasn't there, let's say that Shadow Demon was somebody else.
Just level 3 Treant versus your squad.
I think level 3 Treant wins, yeah.
Well, this time we're going to see one player has a level 2 IO as well as the Pudge. Where is the Pudge hook going to go? Looks like that Pudge hook should hit Wind Ranger, but we're going to find out right now. Ends up getting the IO. IO is going to fall right into the hands of the Bruiser. And will he have enough to be able to... I couldn't tell if he ended up dying or if he's going to be able to reappear. I think he ended up getting killed.
Yes, the IO actually had nobody to bring back. He had the mana, or it had the mana.
Oh, but there was no... Oh, no!
There was nothing to bring back.
Oh, that's a beating.
So it just stood there and couldn't cast.
And there's a Tiny toss. And now it's going to be Axe versus Tiny and with a backup IO. So this Tiny is going to go ahead and pick up Axe, throw him back, stun everybody, and now he is on to an E6. And that's probably going to be all she wrote.
Yeah, this is turning out to be the game of IOs so far. Last game we saw, 1 or 2 people dabbling with IOs occasionally. Here we see all 5 of the top players currently in this lobby are all running IO. We see Angel, Nervin, 2x Josh, 322, and Sanchez all have IO at some level, either 1 or 2-star.
Yeah, and 2x Josh has a level 2, so that is big time. And now we're going to see for Sanchez Hawk is going to go ahead with the Lone Druid and IO combo. And we like that.
Oh, I love that. I love Lone Druid. Not only does he provide so much tankiness, his bear as the extra health total, he just deals lots of damage in these long fights, especially if you get the Savage bonus, because both Lone Druid himself, who's a ranged unit, and his bear are going to be stacking that Savage buff. And then the longer the fight goes, they just hit real hard.
And this time, it looks like Shadow Demon's going to get hooked. Io follows right behind, and Shadow Demon is going to fall, but then Io will be able to use the ultimate. There he goes. And maybe that will be enough.
Looking like it. This Lone Druid is pumping out the damage in these long fights. They don't have the Savage bonus, so no bonus attack speed or bonus attack damage, but even still, he hits pretty hard. Any of these tier 4 units are just going to be a big threat in these long drawn out fights.
Yeah, and you can see that even with just a level 1 Wind Ranger and a level 2 Drow, that the damage is pretty much good enough.
Yeah, no Hunter bonus either, but just the sustained output is looking good here. We see they have a Weaver on the bench, and that to me means that they're looking to bridge into some sort of Hunter strategy. Obviously, I don't think Wind Ranger is the best Hunter come the end of game. She's fine in the early game, but if you're just going to go for 3 Hunters, there's better options at the 3 and 4 cost mark. Weaver is interesting because it kind of signals, I think Weaver's kind of in the same tier as Wind Ranger, kind of low impact on its own, but has that critical insect bonus, which we haven't seen anybody try to play yet today, but I love me some insects.
I have gotten housed by opposing insects. I normally myself don't end up playing them, but I can definitely see how they do a lot of damage.
Yeah, they are very commonly paired up in either a Hunter build or an Assassin's build, just because those are the 2 kind of primary alliances that are represented with the insects between Nyx Assassin and Weaver, being the Assassin and Hunter respectively. You often will see you play one of those 2 because they're core to your strategy, and then you add in the two others, typically Sand King and Broodmother. Broodmother is in jail today, but that doesn't mean that you can't play it. It just means that you have to play both Nyx, Assassin, and Weaver, along with the Sand King.
And there is a problem, Captain. Our Anisix ended up getting hooked by Pudge, taken down, so now we're going to try to fight the rest of this fight down our Underlord, and that usually spells disaster.
Yeah, we thought they had the positional advantage in that case because the Wind Ranger and Drow Ranger were kind of offset a little bit further back than the NSX, but the problem is they had to walk forward because the opponent was also set so far back, so that an NSX is never going to move on her own. She's a little bit lazy in that regard. But your Hunter's got to move up into melee or into ranged attack range, and if the opponent is also set far back off the line, your units are going to walk forward in front of your NSX.
And there you saw, it is just too difficult to try to fight a match where you are down your Underlord. And
oh, actually, I think I misspoke there. I thought their Drow Ranger and Wind Ranger were further back. They actually had a frontline Drow Ranger of all things. That is
tell me about that.
Supremely odd. Well, I guess the argument is she's not actually frontline. The frontline is the fourth row, and she's kind of offset one from there, so she's never going to walk forward because her attack range is so large that she's going to start autoing. Meanwhile, your melee units like Axe are going to walk forward to kind of intercept anybody trying to get onto your Drow Ranger. And I guess it can work. And I guess at this point in the game, she's one of the tankier units on the team. Tankier than Wind Ranger.
Right?
Tankier than...
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's just,
I guess.
You know it's not that great when Drow is one of your tanks.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's tankier than the Lone Druid if you don't count the Bear, because she has armor and the Lone Druid doesn't, but I'm just trying to make excuses for it at this point. I'm not...
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what's happening. But they're going to be able to take the dogs out here, no problem.
Yeah, just that flip formation so that the wolves jump onto your front line because they jump in the back. Pretty easy to beat up on those wolves, given any kind of reasonable composition. It's not one of the harder creep rounds like the Hellbears that we'll see up on round 20.
I find myself not dying as much to creep rounds as I used to, though.
Yeah, the creep rounds I think are in a weird balance spot from like a big picture game design perspective. What is the purpose of the creep rounds? Are they going to be a difficult challenge where you actually have a reasonable shot of losing to them frequently, or are they just going to be like a loot pinata where you just beat them up as a formality and then get your item? I don't know if they've really decided on that from a developer's perspective. I think at one point they were like trivial, no one would ever lose to them, and then they revamped them a little bit to give the crit chance to the wolves. They gave like the massive healing to the Thunderhides and so on, and that made some of them more difficult, but some of them are still trivial.
Yeah.
So I think they need to clarify that position.
Yeah, I think that it could end up being one of the ways to quicken the game is to go back to making them difficult and then them also dealing damage to you if you lose, so that there is, it's rewarding to win, and then also, you just don't fall asleep during those rounds. Because do you remember when like round 15 would come around and you would forget that it was the dog round?
8 or 10 damage, yeah.
Right, and you're like, oh my god, how did I forget it was going on? And while we were talking, Sanchez Hawk got slapped around for 11 life.
Ouch. Yeah.
That's a big chunk.
This is a big chunk. This build has not really come together yet. There's a lot of alliances active, right? There was. But there's a lot of alliances on this board. The big problem is that there's no star levels, right? You're running 1-star Lone Druid, 1-star Tusk, 1-star Tiny. Like, what are you running 1-stars of these guys at this point in the game for?
Because there's nothing going right now. It is just a alliance, like you were talking before. It's like an alliance pinata. There's just kind of like, you've got 3 warriors, but you're looking at your 3rd warrior is just a level... Oh, there's a level 2 Io. So now we're cooking with a little bit more power because now we'll have a level 2 Lone Druid. And maybe level 3. That. If we can find that 3rd Lone Druid, this could all of a sudden you can just kind of put those guys in your back.
Yeah, the extras in a little bit of restraint here, not re-rolling too much more. Doesn't want to spend too much gold at the moment. I think I would justify one more reroll here, because if you go down to 45 gold,
yeah, that's
and then
whatever.
Get the Lone Druid, you can just do it. You can just buy it and still keep your 40 gold of interest. So I would like to see one more reroll there, especially because it's so close to the upgrades. But regardless, The 2-star Lone Druid is a pretty massive improvement. The 2-star IO allows for a lot of protection ability on that Bristleback. Bristleback's so good in these long fights, and giving him that extra, 20% damage reduction means he gets that many more casts off.
Yeah, my concern here is that I just see Sanchez Hawks and Nisix just get hooked over and over and over again. And if it doesn't stay around, he's not going to win.
Yeah, that's a big part of your sustain, not only healing, but also damage. I mean, Essex does reasonable damage in these long fights, and because it's just being constantly hooked, that's a problem. That is a real legitimate problem. And I think to fix that, you need to move an Essex up a step or two.
Yep.
And then still keep the Drow Ranger in the back.
I think so too.
Drow Ranger be a sacrificial bait.
Yep. I think that's what I would do. I would switch my Slardar and my Tiny. I would put Slardar up 1. I would maybe move up Anisix right behind Slardar, and then I would put the Drow right behind Anisix, and then hopefully I can maybe move over Io and the Shadow Demons next to Drow, so that the bonus is still there. But right now, this isn't going to work either, because Io is just going to follow around whoever he's tethered to.
It can work if the opposing Pudge is in the back right corner, which is actually where we see the opposing Pudge right now. So the Pudge will still hook the furthest target, but if the Pudge was, say, straight in front and not kind of set off to the right, it would have backfired.
And we're seeing this mid-fight level 2 Pudge versus level 1 Pudge, and I can tell you that the level 1 Pudge is not going to win that. Goes ahead and falls. There's an Eidolon that spawns right behind Tiny. Tiny's going to go ahead and fight there, and then Io brings back the level 2 Drow, but unfortunately, it is instantly engaged with a Spirit Bear, and not only is the Drow going to fall, but the Io is ends up somehow escaping the Spirit Bear, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter.
Oh, that's going to be a big chunk on Sanchez Hawk there. The opponent, Engel, here just has a much more developed composition. We see they have a 2-star Lone Druid and a 1-star Lone Druid, just for fun. Just for throw another Lone Druid in there. And that means another bear. That means another damage. And the Engel also had an Arc Warden. So that was a big chunk of damage coming out for losing that round. That's the danger of this kind of build, is that it actually can hit this kind of power trough right here in this round 17 to round 24, 25-ish range, where you're spending so much of your gold leveling up to get those higher odds. But then if you're not aggressive about re-rolling with those higher odds, you might just fall behind and not actually have damage output, not actually have the tankiness that you need. And if somebody else gets that, you're going to take a big chunk.
Yeah, you're running into that problem in Underlords where you become the second or third best version of your build. And when you go up against the other versions of what you're playing, you just get wiped. And right now you can see Sanchez Hawk was like 4 rounds ago in in the 70s, and has just lost, I think, 3 or 4 straight, and is now sub 35. And here we talked about level 3 Treant. Here it goes.
I'm really curious about the opponent's build here. I wanted to talk about it. It's PD SBD here, who's been on a massive losing streak this whole game. But they have a healer's composition. They have a 3-star Mr. Warlock. They have a 3-star Treant. They've got a Shadow Fiend. Just a lot of kind of off-meta picks.
But it doesn't do anything.
It's not really working out for them. It heals.
Right. I was gonna say, but who's doing the damage? You're gonna try and hope and pray that your warlocks hold it down. I don't like that plan.
No, I mean, that Shadow Fiend went from almost dead to full health because of the warlock healing, but
but then what?
Not enough.
Right.
Yeah,
that's not
that was an interesting build for sure, but
how lucky for Sanchez Hawk to go up against PDSPB.
Yeah, I'm looking at the damage numbers breakdown from that fight, and Sanchez Hawk's Anesix dealt 13,000, Lone Druid at 12,000. Then look at the opposing side. The highest damage dealer was Shadow Fiend at 9,000. There's no damage coming out.
Right, that's what I said. You can heal all you want to, but you still have to have a DPS.
It's an interesting concept, and if we actually look at the scoreboard, you can see exactly how many alliances PD SBD has here. They've got 8 alliances active. It's so absurd, but it just falls short. I can't help but think that would be improved by just
a little bit of focus.
Well, if you got a troll warlord, right?
Right. Well, I mean that helps everything.
Well, because they already have the troll bonus. If you just replace, I don't even know if you could replace without killing one of your other synergies. So it's a weird build, and it does not seem to be working out too well for them.
Well, here we go. round 20, Smuggler being able to take these guys out will be... Then we do a little bit of RNG, a little bit of rolling, and seeing if we can get one of those crucial item upgrades.
All right, give me a refresher.
I know,
for this
refresher. I was gonna say, give me the refresher. Let's get a couple bears going.
I mean, even some tier 3 items would be quite good here. Something like an Octarine Essence is so good if you're running a Bristleback.
Isn't Mask of Madness fine?
Cooldown. Mask of Madness is acceptable on the Drow Ranger, but it's also good if you do eventually get a Troll Warlord.
Oh, refresher orb! Let's go!
Well, there's also the Octarine. They haven't slammed the refresher just yet. I
was gonna say you have to pick refresher orb, and you just like immediately throw it on your lone druid and say,
yeah.
Look,
I thought, if you don't find that, the Octarine's fine, and even something like a Maelstrom or a Skullbasher is okay, assuming you want to get an Arc Warden at some point. But they don't have the Arc Warden yet, and they don't really have the health or gold total to like aggressively dig for one. So you see them actually going all in. They're down to 1 gold. Just
in this game,
desperately to avoid last place.
This game is not as close as the last one. You can see that is it Angel is at 81, and whereas our last place is at 7. So huge discrepancy between first and last, and even the middle tiers you're looking at 64, 63 versus 30 something. So really needed to just go all in. Has 10 points in the bank, and would love to just make sure that they don't put up a 1 here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely. I mean, PD SVD seems to have a worse composition. They did get the level up, but even so, I think there's some fundamental problems with the way that build was working out for them. So I'd be surprised if they're able to avoid getting 8th place here, but Santa's Talk is next on the chopping block right after that.
Well, these double bears are doing a lot of work. They're going to go ahead and eat Pudge, and they target that Eidolon. 1 is going to fall, but here's the demon.
Io.
And Io? What do we get? We got a Bristleback. That's fine.
I was hoping for the Lone Druid, but okay.
That would have been so sick.
4 bears. Yeah.
4 bears.
Hey, Bristleback still does lots of damage in these fights.
Right, it's no 4 bears, but we'll take it.
Certainly. Actually pulls out the win over Nervin here, who Nervin was a decent bit up in the standings, and Nervin is running somewhat of a similar build, but is also struggling with lots of low stars. We see Nervin is also running 1-star Bristleback, 1-star Io, 1-star Pudge, and just a lot of 1-stars here because they're going for similar units, and they're struggling to find the upgrades.
And Sanchez Hawk can find that, if they can find that 3rd Lone Druid, this is going to be a formidable front line.
Definitely will be. We see in their current shop, they don't have too many great options. We've got an Alchemist, another Viper, and a Lycan. I'm surprised they're not rerolling here. I think I would reroll at least once or twice trying to find that Lone Druid, or even progress towards like Tiny or Pudge to 2-star, which would certainly be upgrades.
Level 3 Tiny incoming.
Oh boy, that is a big boy.
That's a big boy. Who's he gonna pick up and toss is the question.
That's Bristleback, probably.
Io. Now the Lone Druid, our Spirit Bears, are going to do their best against Tiny and company, but it looks like Tiny.
Locked in. That Tiny is locking in that Spirit Bear. That Spirit Bear is dead essentially right now.
Yep, another toss.
So is the starter.
Whee!
Not playing around Tiny.
You've said it over and over again. It's done 3 tosses, which have essentially just turned off Sanchez Hawk's team every single time.
Yeah, I don't think just based on the units that they would have won even with better positioning. But still, you wouldn't have taken quite as much. Maybe they take another 1 or 2 units down and only lose by the Hunters in the back line, not able to kill them off in time. But here, they just got crushed for 12. And there's no assassins in the game. There's nobody jumping onto your backline. There's really no reason to have everybody so stacked up. We see them adjusting a little bit now by just shifting the formation.
Right, that hasn't done anything.
Minor change, not really. I would definitely be spreading a lot here too.
Well, we are now in round 23. Still anybody's game. 63 life for our first place player, and Angel picks up not only a level 2 Io, but also a level 2 Lone Druid.
Oh boy, that means a level 3 Lone Druid or level
Nasty.
3 Io, which both of which go crazy. And we actually see Sanchez Hawk here pick up a gyrocopter of all things.
What are they doing with Gyro here?
Well, Gyro has no synergies to provide for this build. So what did they replace? The Shadow Demon? Really? That is a little unexpected. I guess the argument is just you want to pick up just a good damage dealing unit on its own.
Well, and
it does good AoE, but
if everybody else is maybe cornering, like,
yeah, this will be a big hit, but like, is it enough? Like,
right, but so
a
right,
little bit of damage to everybody, and then they cast one Nessus seal, and
everybody's back. Yeah. Well, they're making a lot of progress. Brings back Tidehunter, but there's a lot of angry Spirit Bear on Spirit Bear action. And there is no more gyrocopter here. Io is hanging out with Tidehunter. There goes the Spirit Bear. Spirit Bear now is on top of... Looks like... Was that a nature? Yeah, it was. Here comes Demon.
Viper's doing surprisingly good work here. Disabling the alliances under his Nether Toxin. Doing respectable damage, even in these long, drawn-out fights. Doesn't have the Dragon Alliance, which would obviously help. But, you know, I was a little pleasantly surprised by that there.
Well, Gyro did about 5,800 damage, which isn't... That's really nothing. Needs an Arc Warden here. Arc Warden would easily be able to just slot in and probably do about 8,000. Just with a level 1.
Right, but we see so many people are contesting Arc Warden. It's no surprise that it's a struggle to find. And nearly, well, I guess 5 of the remaining 7 players have picked it up. And I do know that PD, SPD has been eliminated. There was that interesting Healer and Warlock build. They just apparently couldn't get out enough damage by the end of the fight, so you could sustain forever. But if you're not actually killing anything, you're not going to win the fight.
Yeah, I wonder when I look at the lobby for Sanchez Hawk, it doesn't look like this is a strong enough build to beat some of these other players here. I mean, I see somebody.
It seems like they just have strictly better builds.
Yeah,
like strictly better.
Like everybody.
Same thing, but just better. Yeah.
Lots of level 3s running around. Obviously, if he can find another lone druid, that might change things a little bit. But as of right now, it doesn't look like a first place crew in its current configuration.
Nice IO pulling back the Slarder to basically lock your own Slarder in. It's kind of like you tiny tossed your own Slarder here, but turns out it's actually getting it done.
Because now we're going to get the Demon, and 7th place now. Is this Anme? I don't know how to say their name. Anme?
I think so.
Anme?
Yeah. Yeah, it is able to pull this one out here, and now Sanchez Hawk is dropping down Josh down to 1-shot range, down to 12 life.
Well, the double bear goes a long way, and this is what I was saying, is just like being able to find... Oh, look, Gyro went for 12,000 that time.
Yeah, he cast 2, maybe even 3.
I think he cast 3.
Yeah, that's pretty substantial. I know in the previous fight it got hooked right away and just got 1 cast off, but in the long fights, his cooldown is relatively short. It's only a 10-second cooldown, I believe, and it does pretty good damage when people are stacked up.
And that's what I'm assuming that was the thought process is, all right, I can't find Arc Warden. I got to have the next best thing. And Gyro has stepped in and done just that, 12,000. I was saying that, look, you know, an Arc Warden might do 8,000. Well, Gyro said 8,000. Ha! Is that it? Just 8,000?
Yeah, just 8,000. Well, I'll DPS that. I mean, a Nessus is even out DPS 8,000. You know, with the,
normally that's not the case.
Right. I think they've picked up the. Actually, they don't even have despite all my rage to come back stronger. They just have Chaotic Hunter, Exploit Weakness, and Sharp Pain. So that's interesting that an Essex had so much damage output there.
And we're going to get a call down, and the bird gets cooked. Double Bear is still doing just so much work. That's exactly what you're hoping for. And for Sanchez Hawk, please, sweet baby Jesus, can I have a... Right here, give me a good weapon, and then in the next shop, give me a Lone Druid and an Arc Warden. That's all I ask.
I think they're also probably desperate for a 2-star Tidehunter. I know that's a little bit out of reach since you need 2 of them, but 2-star Tidehunter is such a massive improvement over 1-star. Not only does the stun duration increase, the radius increases, so you actually hit more targets. I think, I know last game, Triple N was still rocking a 1-star Tidehunter at the end of the game.
Double refresher orb.
There's another refresher. That's pretty powerful.
So if you put Tidehunter next to Lone Druid and they both have refreshers, like... Oh, or refresher on Gyro.
Yeah, a 1-star Tide Hunter, like I said, the ultimate's just not that impactful. Once you get up to 2-star Tide, I'm sure we'll see that moved over to the Tide Hunter. But in the meantime, you just need damage output, so it makes sense to put on the Gyrocopter.
Well, and here we talk about damage output. DK is now in, and we saw the power of DK in the last match, just being able to range unit, nice armor, sustainability. It's next to, well, it was next to Drow, and it just does a lot for this particular lineup because he needs the damage.
Yeah, even at just 1-star, the Dragon Knight still has the Breathe Fire effect, which is still a pretty substantial AoE damage effect, even at 1-star. It obviously doesn't have quite as much splash damage, so it's not quite as effective in that regard, but, you know, you got to find the damage we can get it. Beggars can't be choosers.
And you see here, the level 3 Tiny is still fighting, but the level 3 Tusk is taken down, and Io brought back the level 2 Lone Druid, so another bear coming to fight against Sanchez Hawk.
Frankly, I'm really surprised how well this is going for Sanchez Hawk.
Me too!
I just looked on paper, I was just looking at the scoreboard, and I'm like, oh, if they go up against 3-2-2 here, they're just going to get shredded. But
that's exactly what I was saying.
Shredding the opposite way.
Right!
I'm very genuinely surprised by that. I guess 3-2-2 is only level 8, so they don't have quite as many units. They're missing 1 unit, but like they've got 3-star Tiny, 3-star Tusk. Everybody else on their board is 2-star.
That was a light. That wasn't close.
We're rocking a 1-star Pudge, a 1-star Dragonite, a 1-star Gyro, 1-star Tide.
Yeah, just 1-star. But you know, we also have double refresher orbs, so we're going to be able to get 2. Yeah. Spirit Bears, double call down, and then also maybe we get a little bit lucky with Io if Lone Druid gets taken out and we get 2 more bears. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things that can happen with this crew, but the upgrades, there are still so many upgrades here, but no gold for Sanchez Hawk, no Aegis, none of that. We are vulnerable.
Wait, they leveled to 10?
And then just added a Lone Druid.
I
don't understand.
I do not like that. So when the logic between rerolling and leveling up can sometimes be a little complicated, but it kind of boils down to, is my composition going to be more improved by spending 50 gold on upgrading or leveling up, or is it going to be better spent on using 20 rerolls and buying whatever we find for those 20 rerolls? That's about how much you're giving up by leveling up here.
Right.
And I gotta think the 20 rerolls is gonna give you a 2-star Lone Druid. It's gonna give you a 2-star Tide Hunter. And I think that's better than just throwing in another single level 1 Lone Druid.
But I want to talk about these call-downs. These call-downs have just been nuts for Sanchez Hawk. I mean, in addition, he was going against call-downs, but this has been a fine replacement for not being able to find the Arc Wardens. 13,000 damage there. Josh 2X is now gone.
Wow. Yeah, this kind of build that is just a hodgepodge of, well, you know, the dragons, the gyrocopter, the 1-stars around the board. It's making it work. Even though other boards kind of on paper, to me, look a little bit better. I mean, they have more stars. They've got more synergies completed.
Bringing in the techies now.
Oh, techies. That's interesting. So what does techies give you? It completes the Inventor Alliance? That's
whatever.
Can't be relevant.
That's not
relevant. Can't be relevant.
It's just more damage, right?
I guess. I guess it's better than a 1-star Lone Druid, but not by much.
Maybe.
Not by much.
Maybe. I was going to say,
Even that. It's actually in a pretty bad spot right here. It's not going to get its cast off very quickly.
Here comes down the first call down, and the first call down does not remove anybody.
The opposing IO's gone off. I think this is going to go horribly for Sanchez Hawk here. They brought back a sniper.
Oh, brought back
2-star.
And then
the sniper has.
The IO on our side ended up bringing back Drow.
Yeah, it's a little bit worse than the sniper who's got an Assassin's Veil, and that sniper is constantly targeting the Nesix, or it had an Assassin's Veil.
Yeah, but the DK, or no, the Viper 2 got enthralled. So
yikes. Yes. Yeah, the one big part about Enthrall is the enthralled target, if it comes back, does deal player damage to you if you lose to it. So that added, insult to injury there, dealing more damage.
I'll take it and beat your ass with it. Oh, there's the level 2 Lone Druid for Sanchez Hawk and for 322.
15 rounds too late, but
Right,
okay.
no big deal.
But importantly, Sanchezak is locked in the top 4 position. There's the other players, Triple N, 2x Josh, have all been eliminated in the past couple of rounds, and now we've got, at least a top 4 finish, and you can't be too upset with that,
No.
given the strength of this lobby.
And Sanchez Hawkins is still very much able to catch someone at like 18 health or 31. That's only like 2 rounds. But 322 has 50 gold and 31 health. So we're going to see. This is the person he wants to beat. Can he beat Nervin? 3-star Lone Druid. How many bears we getting?
Seems like just
There's 2 of them.
Io looks like it's about to die to this call down. Yep. So no Io this round, but still.
But look
those
at
bears deal 3 damage each.
Yeah. And look at the call down. The first call down did a lot of damage. The heal hasn't gone off quite yet, but the problem here is the call down onto Sanchez Hawk was just too strong.
Yeah, this is last game we were pleasantly surprised with the impact of Dragon Knight in a lot of these compositions, and I think this round we're surprised with the impact of Gyrocopter in a lot of these comps. Both of those players, they're running the Gyrocopter, and both of them had massive impact.
Yeah, well, one player, though, had Arc Warden and Gyro. So that's just a lot of damage to just go up against when you're on only one side of it, right? So, but that's still a very strong performance. 4th place, so 1st place in round 1, 4th place in round 2. Now it's going to be up to one of these 3 players to really make their impact by getting a 1st place now going into the last round, and then they'll know if they control their own destiny or not. It's always nice to go into the last round and say, if I win, I win. I don't have to worry about what anybody else does.
Yeah, and we saw Triple N, who's the 2nd place player last game, dropped out on 5th. So, of what happens in this final 3 here, you got to think Sanchez Hawk is 1st or 2nd going into the last round. I haven't run all the numbers, but I would assume they're in pretty good shape.
And now, let's see. We don't have Smuggler this time.
Right, so no chance of a tier 5 item on this creep round. And actually, just looking at 322's items here, they're pretty lackluster, if I got to be honest with you.
Double Helm.
Chainmail's obviously Chainmail's great in the early game, Helm is great in the early game, but there are a lot of defensive options. And you do want a mix of offensive and defensive items, and the offensive items here are not good. You've got Assassin's Veil, which is like a utility kind of offensive item, which is good on Sniper, good on Gyrocopter. But it's no Daedalus, it's no Moon Shard in terms of raw damage output, and their options here are equally bad. You got Tombstone, or what do they end up picking? A Sacred Relic.
Yeah, and when you have when you have Sniper and Gyro, they're still going to be able to get the Deadeye bonus anyway, right? So do you want them targeting the Underlord first, or would you rather them have an Assassin's Veil?
I do like Assassin's Veil to an extent. I think it definitely has utility because you get to deny your opponent from casting their heal effect, assuming you're running in Essex mirror matches here. Deny their heal.
Deny their hype?
Okay. Yeah, deny their hype, deny the first heal for a little while. And that potentially lets you kill their frontliners before they get the heal off, and then you can kind of snowball the fight from there. That being said, it's... I would take a Moon Shard over it any day. Or any kind of good damage item.
And what we're seeing here is for 322, there's a lot of damage going towards that Underlord, and the Underlord is going to go ahead and fall. But there's a lot of bears. There's level 2 Arc Wardens running around, but the level 3 Tiny is still around, and he is heads up with the Troll Warlord, takes him out, tosses Doom to the side, and now we see an Assassinate, but the Tiny's going to fall, and Spirit Bear is also going to fall. Did enthrall a Troll Warlord, and that looks like actually...
Not quite. Actually,
almost. There it is.
Long enough to let the backline damage dealers and the Despite All My Rage Demon Archer, who had just massively increased attack damage, come up and be clutch at the end of that fight. Yeah, that was a really close one for sure. The Enthrall definitely is good in this build where you have the long range damage dealers. You have the essentially infinite range Gyrocopter and Sniper. That makes Enthrall a pretty good pick because you're always going to be able to get on that target right away. Yeah,
you will. If it gets enthralled, you will be able to kill it. And bringing back a Troll Warlord is not a bad thing. What will 322 do here? 31 life, 2nd place 18, 3rd 4. Nobody really has much economy to speak of.
I'm really afraid of Nervin here. Nervin has an Arc Warden 2-star with a Bloodseeker or a
Ugh,
Bloodthorn.
Bloodthorn.
Yeah,
Bloodthorn is gross.
It certainly is, especially on Arc Warden where you get to do its effects twice. Not only does it have 70 bonus attack damage, but the silence is so impactful whenever you're relying on these big, impactful ultimates like Tiny Toss or like Lone Druid Bears or Tidehunter's Stun.
Oh my, IO brings back Tiny. Level 3 Tiny once more. It is fighting heads up against the Tidehunter. Actually moves over to take out to take out Troll Warlord and falls then. But now Tusk versus Slark. Slark falls and enthralled.
Enthrall on Troll Warlord.
Troll Warlord again.
The combo that won him both times here.
Combo.
We see that pops Angel's Aegis. They had an Aegis of the Immortal there. And Nervin was able to also beat Angel's Ghost on the other board. So Nervin and 322 are still both on win streaks here. Hard to say how this is going to turn out, but I feel like Nervin with the Bloodthorn Arc Warden might have a slight advantage. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it really depends on if this level 2 Gyro comes around. I think, obviously, getting into a level 2 Gyro or the level 3 Drow those are really, really big upgrades. But we're going to go into round 32. Will it be a ghost or will it be a real player? And who do we have? It's going to be against Nervin.
Against the real Nervin here.
I will say,
I like how the person who has the 3-star Tiny is the one whose positioning is best set up against
right?
opposing Tinies. It's like they know that, oh yeah, I'm playing this guy. I should probably protect myself from it.
And everything looks pretty good. Tiny is now on top of Anisix, and this is going to be a huge wipe. Wow. 25 life wipe. Woohoo!
Well, the IO brought back the Lone Druid 3-star, so it got the extra bears, and that was that. I mean, also, Nervin's positioning just set them up perfectly to get stunned forever by the Tiny Toss.
Oh, Engel beat 322, though. The Ghost.
Interesting.
I definitely didn't see that.
Yeah, Engel has made one change. They got a Faceless Void now. So maybe that changes the math. The Faceless Void jumps in onto the Gyrocopter, the Sniper, and then does a big AoE stun and just prevents that damage output for a little while. I think in order to play around that, you've got to shift that core unit kind of like... I would put Gyrocopter, Drow, and Sniper like in the second row and kind of off to the side, and then put Mirana in the back row on the opposite side and just let it jump onto the Mirana and hopefully just stun only the Mirana.
Okay, I like that.
Don't see that actually happening here, but that's how I would approach Faceless Voids. Otherwise, it's going to do this. And
it got everybody. It just missed that Tiny by like a square, but that was super big. Drow does fall, but nobody else really. There's an Assassinate on Slardar. Tiny is now on to Doom. And Doom looks like will probably end up winning that fight, but Tiny throws him back in, and then there's a call down, so the 3-star IO on the other side falls. Spirit Bear, level 2 Spirit Bear is no match for level 3 Spirit Bear, and this is looking excellent for 322, and this should be a victory here.
Wow. That was... I thought it was going to go completely out the other way whenever that first Chrono Cube came out. Got the big stun, but... the Tiny Tosses came up clutch.
It didn't catch Tiny in that freeze. Tiny was off to the right-hand side, ended up freezing everyone in the middle, which did put Gyro and the Sniper back a little bit, but not enough to matter.
What a game. And so we've got 322 as the victor here with a Deadeye 3-star Tiny composition, and Engel coming just a bit short with a rather similar build.
Well, we only have one more round left. One of these players will be our champion, but we're going to find out right after the break.
Oh, you're going to pick me. We both know it. The fun is about to begin.
We are back, and this is the last round. This is for it all, and it is anybody's game right now. We have Sanchez Hawk with 15 points. We have FR1 or 322. I'm not sure what he wants to go by, but has 14 points. Nervin 12, Angel 12, Triple N 11. So our first players at 15 and 14 control their own destiny. If they win it all.
They certainly do, but players like Nervin and Engel at 12 points can essentially force a tie if they win. If they get first place, and then Sanchez Hawk, our current leader at 15 points, gets second, both of them would make up that gap. They both get up to 22 points. And I'm not entirely sure about the tiebreaker rules, but because it's a 3-point gap and you get the bonus 3 points for getting first, you can essentially force a tie. So any of the top 4 players right now all kind of control their own destiny in that regard.
That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So here we go. We are going to, let's see, who do we want to, we've watched Triple N, we've watched Sanchez Hawk. Let's take a look at Nervin.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Nervin is another very good player. I've played in a number of tournaments with Nervin. Is a streamer as well, so a well-known entity and definitely a very good player that I'm curious to see how he navigates this game. So we see initially they're picking up some Savages. We got Venomancer and Enchantress. We haven't seen too many Savages in the early game. Mostly people focusing on picking up Warriors and Heartless, but Savages definitely can ramp up their damage pretty quick in these early game fights.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that. Is you want to be in the Warriors, obviously, but Savages are. We're always looking for in this warrior build to how do we get the DPS? How do we find the damage? Well, Savages have that really kind of just built in and taken care of.
Yeah, especially when the fights do go long, because you've got the warriors defense, you've got the healing from an Essex. Fights are just naturally going to go on for 20, 30, 40 seconds. And in that time, the auto attacks keep ramping up. It scales infinitely. And at some point, your Venomancer or your Enchantress or whatever Savages are just going to be hitting for hundreds of damage per auto, even at 1 star.
Yeah, and you love it. You love seeing that because then you don't have to have these hard conversations as to, man, where do I find my ability to actually kill another unit? Where is it going to come from?
So it looks like Nervin has opted away from the Venomancer in exchange for Slardar, who fulfills a very similar role. He doesn't ramp up damage over time, but he does have an armor shred on his ultimate, which essentially increases their damage output from everybody. And he just has very high base DPS, especially this early on. He deals more than double damage of the other warriors.
And being able to have this early 3 warrior buff and have the ability to have an early pudge, it's just amazing. We've seen just the kind of work Pudge can do when it's able to get something hooked, but now has the backup Shadow Demons on the bench so that immediately can go from this 3 warrior build. Once they hit level 4, we'll be able to go ahead and pick up the next bonus, which is going to be that undead bonus.
Yeah, and I like the positioning that we see out of Nervin here. Actually has the Slardar offset 1 step back from the front line. You want your Pudge and your Tiny to be the first ones your opponents attack, and you don't want Slardar to take too much aggression. He's much more valuable to be a long-term damage dealer rather than a tank like Pudge or Tiny is here. And so I like that adaptation.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the default positioning, right? You want to make sure that your bigger damage units don't all of a sudden have to absorb everything. So very good. Isn't going to matter here. We'll end up go ahead and getting a loss, but it could have been worse if the positioning was worse.
Yeah, sometimes even if you got all of your units, you got your alliances, the opponent had the Druid Alliance, which provides a higher star unit or star level on the unit, and that's just going to win out just by raw stats. Doubling your health, doubling your damage output on one of those Druids is still very impactful.
Yeah, in early game, that's what it's all about. It's how many level 2s can you put up, and if you don't have the level 2s, can I make the Warrior Alliance? Can I make some sort of alliance like that will essentially give me extra health and extra sustainability? And you see here, no level 2s, just going to have to hope for the best.
Yeah, whenever you don't have a powerful early game and you don't win that first round and you don't get the upgrades, it doesn't make much sense to level up right away. You just have to accept, I'm going to lose a round or two here, especially because you see the opponent here, Anme has two stars, the Draw Ranger and the Venomancer. So there's no real point in trying to fight for a win streak at this point. Let's just accumulate the pairs, use the free rerolls, and then find the 2-star units, and then level up, and then try to turn it around into a win streak.
Yeah, and we talk about this quite often, is in Underlords, there's a time where you just have to turn the corner, right? Like, life is life. It's a resource just like anything else in this game, so you're not going to get too stressed, if you lose 5-3, whatever. But you have to have a long-term goal of, okay, here's what I'm looking to do, and here's what it's going to look like when I do turn that corner. So now, instead of losing, I am actually able to position myself to have a good round here. And for Nervin, it's a win or nothing. It's, if you don't win, all of this time and effort isn't, I don't say it's a waste, but you are definitely playing a different game when you know you have to get first.
Absolutely. It looks like they're going to be running with, they did level up actually here to get the Heartless, and they found a 2-star Pudge, which is much more tanky than a 1-star Pudge. It's 2.5 times as much, as 5,000 HP. See, the opponent Angel here is running, or not Angel, 322 is running Bloodseeker of all.
Why?
And we talked about Bloodseeker. Well, there's a big-time contract on the Chaos Knight. So
okay.
You just want it to die as quickly as possible, which is exactly what he does.
It did. He walked in and instantly got smashed.
The problem is that Chaos Knight, despite having massive bonus attack damage, has no resilience of its own. At least not at 1 star. Certainly not compared to these warriors all focus firing him down, and it didn't end up mattering much in the end.
Level 2 Pudge is just so good. It's not only...
Absurdly.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about it really fast. I mean, 5,000 HP. 5,000 at this level. There's not many things that even do 5,000 damage, let alone, like, even if we look at the damage stats from last round, our top 2 damage dealers did 5,000. So that's, if every single thing on our board, which was the Anesix and the Pudge, attacked just Pudge, it would have taken it down. But that's not normally how it works.
No, it's not. And I mean, I like the idea of having this really big, like, tanky unit that has lots of health. The problem is that Pudge also provides a really good ability. That hook is so impactful, given the fact that all of the Underlords right now are ranged units who are going to stay back, so you're very likely to hook the opposing Underlord. And the fact that he also provides some of the best alliances in the game, in the Warrior and the Heartless alliance.
Yeah, Warrior and Heartless is crazy.
Yeah, so like the idea of having this high health thing, because his health is obviously much higher than any other unit at his equivalent cost, or even at 3 cost. I just, you gotta nerf him somehow. He's
look at him. Look at him right now. He is maybe has taken 25% of his health total.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I would like to see either a health total nerf on him, or, I mean, it would be crazy, but change some of his alliances, because it's just too impactful at the moment.
Is there a Pudge without a hook? Like, is he, with the way he's set up now, if he didn't have hook, is he just like, is that just not flavorful enough if that's just like super bad?
So I don't know about flavor too much. I don't actually play really any Dota myself.
He's like, I don't know what the hell Dota is.
I don't like, I really don't. So I have hundreds upon hundreds of hours in Dota, and all of it is in auto chess. I literally, like, on my Steam's like played, I have like over 500 hours in Dota, and it's all auto chess. So I've never really played a real game of Dota.
Okay.
That being said, I do know from Dota Underlords and from auto chess, a Heartless Warrior is just exceptionally valuable.
Regardless of what it is.
Regardless of the ability. Yeah, the ability, the stats don't matter. It's just, if you're running a Warrior build, you want Heartless because you're mostly going to be physical damage. And I think if Pudge had any ability, as long as it still was a Heartless, it would be played a lot.
I mean, yeah, I think it obviously, being the alliances that it has is amazing. But, I mean, I think it just has to be Heartless. Now, if it's not a Warrior, I mean, what do you make it?
Some people have speculated to make him a Brawny, to grow
Okay.
his health total even more.
Right,
You
to make him
nerf
even
his initial
stupider?
health total. Well, you nerf his initial health total, and you take him out of warrior, so he doesn't get the bonus
Okay.
armor from being here, and then you just let his health go really, really high.
I
It
don't
could
know.
work.
That could work, but God, he could be really gross as a brawny.
Yeah, it would definitely be. It wouldn't be a straight nerf. It would be a side grade, not
A
necessarily
side grade.
but not an upgrade or downgrade. Just be different. But
I think it would still be a little bit of a problem. But it would. I mean, the thing
could be.
Yeah, the problem now is that warriors are just too good. Even when you would have to have like a jail that had like 3 warriors in it in order for warriors to really not just be the best. And I think in a draft format, which is what we're playing right now, that I don't like it when it's like 4 or 5 of the same crew have to be represented because they're that good. So I would like to see some of these warriors taken out of the warrior comp. You know, I could see Slardar not being a warrior. I could see Pudge not being a warrior. And I think that would just make things a little bit more interesting.
Agreed. I think warrior's been kind of a default thing that's like, oh, what is this guy? Well, I guess he's a warrior. Just throw him in there. We could even see like Troll Warlord moved away. I know he has the word war in his name, but you could easily see Troll Warlord being like a Troll Savage or something, because it kind of fits like the Berserker Savage mentality where...
Right.
And it also fits his ability that he wants to attack a lot because he increases his attack speed, and then if he's also ramping up Savage stacks, you know, maybe that's a better fit for him. And then you also nerf warriors in the process.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things I think that are possible, and we'll see. I think having jail is awesome. We still have a lot of people we can still add. We can still do a lot to Underlords, so we are definitely not done when it comes to characters in this game and what can be done. So I'm excited for the future.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of design space here to be explored, a lot of interesting decisions to be made, a lot of interesting characters to be added, and I think there's a lot to look forward to for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Legion Commander did something different, but you know, whatever. I'm pretty happy here, and once we have a game that has, you know, like 10 Underlords, I think it's going to be awesome. I think this will be its own genre. It'll separate itself from the other games and becomes... And I also think we can have a constructed format. I mean, we'll talk about that another point. But
I've not heard of that proposal.
It's my little side project that I've been working, where you have only a certain amount of star levels for your crew, and depending on the format, certain formats are like would be the stupid formats, right? Where like you can have any number of stars, but most of them would be like, let's say you have like 15 star levels or like 10 star levels, and
sure,
you just do it that, and you start the game with it. You say, here's my crew, here's my deck, boom, and from round 1 on, you already have your 15 star levels, items and things like that you would still buy as you went along, but there's no more shop. It's just straight fights. So now games last like, 15 minutes as opposed to anything else. So, but we still have a tournament to win here. That's my speculation about something different.
Certainly an interesting idea, but the action on screen is also pretty interesting. We've got the opponent here, Sanchez Hawk, has some druids of their own. They've got Nature's Prophet, dealing lots of sustained damage, but doesn't seem to be enough. We got the IO to resurrect the Slardar, and Slardar's coming back with a vengeance and attacking real fast with that IO buff.
Yeah, it just kind of goes back to now, look at Pudge is still alive. After all of that level 2 Pudge finally fell, but not before it was able to essentially just soak up, 5,000 damage from the opposing team. And that's 5,000 damage that's not going to these smaller units. 5,000 damage that's not being spread amongst units where that makes a difference. And that is why we got on this conversation of Pudge in the first place, is it's just a huge damage sink.
It actually absorbs over 6,000 damage based on the healing from an Essex and Enchantress.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
And then, not to mention, you have to factor in the idea that he has the warrior.
He has the armor too.
So he's essentially a 15 armor target. So to deal 6,000 damage through 15 armor, you multiply that again, and just the amount of raw damage he absorbs is insane.
Yeah, it's it is just crazy at this level. I mean, we're talking about round 12. Now, when you get into the higher levels and you have higher star units, it's not quite as abusive. But right now, on round 12, it is big time damage. And here we go.
See the opponent here, Angel, has an Arc Warden on round 12. That is certainly early.
Nice roll there, buddy.
Has a Gloves of Haste, not the most impactful item at this point, but still a good start for sure.
Yeah, you're not going to complain about a Arc Warden this early. And again, there's an Arc Warden taking down Tusk, and now Pudge and the Bruiser heads up, and everybody's attacking Pudge, and guess what? Pudge doesn't care because your damage is not enough.
Still at 50%.
Look at this.
No
He's taking it all. But what is the rest of his crew doing? Like, the rest of the crew's got to do a little bit more. Somebody gets turned into a chicken, the warrior, but there goes the Arc Warden is going to get taken down. And there goes finally Pudge. And now this is where should be hopefully able to turn the corner here for the opposing player. But right now,
going to take over eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Well, that's the clone, right? So they only have to deal with one. But one seems to be enough.
All right, odds this is a draw.
Oh my! There it is.
It's a draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if that went on forever, I think Angel wins over Nervin here. Just barely, but it's the fights just take forever, especially whenever you've got Shadow Shaman who doesn't deal a ton of damage, but transforms you into a chicken, so you don't deal damage. That can end up towards a draw, and especially both in Essex had Brill Bruiser, so they were just staring at each other from 3 squares away, like I'm gonna get you eventually, but they never quite got there.
Yeah, and this early warrior buff is helping. Having chainmail helps. Do we think maybe it's possible that there's just a complete nerf and a complete rework of what warriors do? Maybe they just don't get armor anymore.
I think that's totally acceptable. I think armor is too generically applicable.
Yeah.
And I think that as well with knights. You've got knights that just have flat damage reduction. And I get the idea that you need to have some sort of tanky alliance, right? Just by the nature of the way these fights go, you have a front line, you have a back line, you've got utility. So you've got 3 kind of roles to fill. And I think just giving armor is an acceptable but boring way of fulfilling that tankiness role.
God, this level 3 IO is just...
Oh, it's absurd.
Look at this thing. Look what he's doing with Tusk.
Well, not just that, but look what IO itself is dealing pretty decent damage.
Just melting things right now.
Well, the Tusk, for certainly, because basically a 3-star IO with its tether gives 110 attack speed.
Ugh.
That is more than a Moon Shard on both units.
Lord, that's disgusting.
Yeah, IO is one of my favorite new units for sure. Just because of the interesting gameplay it makes, the tethering, the relocate. It's so versatile and just fits into a lot of compositions, especially in the early game, and goes well into the late game.
Yeah, and
I love IO.
Yeah, and I love IO in his current or I don't know if it's a he, but it's IO's.
It's an it.
It's an it. IO's current configuration is so much better than like that wild card configuration it was previous, where it just like didn't really do much except help you upgrade. Right? It is its own thing.
Correct.
It has its own flavor, and that's what I'm all about. I'm a flavor guy. I like to see a unit, and when it does something, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense based on like Dota, and that makes sense based on things. And you see that with Pudge, you see that with IO, and IO go ahead that brings back the Enchantress, and
I don't think it's
yeah, that's not going to be enough, I don't think.
The backline of Enma here has an Arc Warden, has a Venomancer, has a Necrophos, and we haven't seen too much of Necrophos since his rework. He used to be like the default, undisputed best unit in the game. Like I would put him at the top of every tier list, not because he was the most powerful, but because he was played in everything.
Well, he had
so impactful.
Yeah, Warlock bonus, which and Heartless bonus. Like I think the issue was like, okay, almost anything that has the Heartless bonus tends to be better than not, because negative armor is also very, very good.
Yes. And then the AoE healing just paired so incredibly well with the warriors and with knights, because the damage reduction effects of that tankiness is amplified by the healing. So you're still going to heal the same amount, but then because you have the damage and defensive abilities, it means it takes that much more damage to undo the healing, essentially. So healing is multiplied when you have these tanky units, and that's why he was just such a common pairing.
Yeah, well, whatever happened to knights? Like, I don't ever see, like, at the higher lobbies, people playing knights. Are they just not good anymore?
Well, since the big update, a couple things have changed. One, the jail system hurts them quite a bit. Anytime a knight is banned, other than Sven, it makes it extremely hard to get 6 knights. And 6 knights was kind of the default positioning of knights. You wanted to get up to 6 if possible, just for the maximum benefit there. And with the jail system, it makes it a little bit less likely on a day-to-day basis. Like today, we see Batrider is jailed, and he's very important for early night compositions. The other important part, and the part that despite that, I've tried to make knights work a lot, only to find out that apparently they are bugged and they don't actually give as much damage reduction as they should.
Oh.
They do get their initial damage reduction of like 10, 15, 25% or whatever it is, but they don't get an additional reduction for being adjacent to a friendly knight. And
well,
that's obviously a big
that's a problem. Yeah.
Yes.
That would make knights not great.
But despite that, even when that is fixed, I would still fear that any day that Luna, Chaos Knight, or Batrider is in jail, the entire alliance kind of falls apart.
Yeah, it seems to me that for knights to be good again, that Sven has to be cheaper. Sven has to be not the ace. It needs to be like a 4, and they need another ace. Or they leave him as an ace and they add another knight. There's just... I need a really good additional... I mean, because you have DK, but the problem is that everyone wants DK. Like, he just goes in every comp.
Right.
So he's heavily contested. So you need another knight that really is just only good with other knights. And if you can do that, maybe there's something there. So, like, if you made Sven a 4 and then added an ace of knights, there's, like, a possibility there. But otherwise, yeah, it's like... knights are just kind of so blah. And I didn't even know about the second piece of that. That makes way more sense as to why whenever I play knights, it seems they're just a little underpowered. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, they're still working out some of the bugs from the big update, which changed so many things. It's not surprising to see 1 or 2 things get, slipped by. But that's definitely one of the big detriments of them right now, is they're not nearly as tanky as they should be, which is especially problematic because the builds often rely on very long sustained fights to win out in the long run, because they don't have that burst damage, at least not until you get a Sven, and that's unreliable at best as an ace unit.
And you can see here, it is a nice little win here.
Yeah, Nervin's got a nice little win streak coming together with the Druid builds. We've got 3 wins in a row with a 2-star IO with a Maelstrom. Actually, we didn't mention that the Maelstrom item is one of the best tier 3 items for sure. It used to be a tier 4, and they just buffed it down to tier 3. And it's still very impactful when you have high attack speed, especially on somebody like Io, who gives a lot of attack speed, but because of the tether effect.
So let's talk about the power of Maelstrom. You said it went down from a 4 to a 3. It gives 25% chance on attack to do the lightning to 4 targets at 100 damage each. But I guess for someone who maybe doesn't understand, why is this good? Because it doesn't add attack speed. It doesn't add attack damage. It's just a 25% chance. How does that compare?
So functionally, if assuming you get the full amounts of bounces on that, because in most fights people are going to have more than that many people up, it kind of adds 100 bonus damage, because you have a 25% chance of dealing 400 damage, so you on average get plus 100 damage per attack. The important part is that damage is magic damage, so it is not reduced by armor. So if the opponents don't have a scaled buff or any kind of other magic resistance, it's going to be even more effective than a traditional, like, Sacred Relic, which gives plus 60 attack damage. The downside is it's a little bit spread out, so if your opponent has healing, such as from an Essex or something, they can better heal the spread out damage a little bit better. But even so, plus 100 average damage per attack is extremely impactful for a tier 3 item. Certainly when you compare it to the alternatives like Sacred Relic or Skull Basher.
Well, and that's why when you put a Maelstrom onto an Arc Warden, it just is so silly.
Yeah, not only do you get to duplicate it, so you get the plus 100 on both Arc Wardens, but also he has a relatively fast attack speed. And it comes out of just simple math. The more attack speed that you have, the better attack damage items are, because you get to use that attack damage more often because you're attacking faster. And then vice versa, if you already have a very high attack speed, you just want to increase your attack damage. And Arc Warden has a very high attack speed comparatively to most units in the game, and that's why Maelstrom and other attack damage items are so good on him.
So let's just take a look into the lobby really fast. We're going into round 18. If you look at the crews as they're currently constructed, who do you like right now?
I gotta say, I'm liking actually where Nervin is at right now. I think Nervin's items are by far the best. The Maelstrom, as we mentioned. Ambit also has a Maelstrom, and they just got a 2-star Arc Warden, so maybe I take my comment back. They did not have that when I started that sentence. So the 2-star Arc Warden is going to be a real big draw here. I'll be interested to see how the 4 Druid works. The 4 Druid build works out for 2x Josh down there. 4 Druids is generally avoided for most players, since some of the Druids, the Nature's Prophet and the Enchantress, tend to fall off in effectiveness later on in the game. But you can't deny that in this mid game, it can be pretty powerful.
And we see here the lobby is shaping up to currently you've got 82 life with Angel. Triple N just took a loss down to 69, and then Nervin at 68. So you still have these players who are very much in contention. Just they're still surrounding each other. They're trying to make their turn to say, look, I've got the best crew. It's time for me to go ahead and get this money, get this win. But everybody's just kind of keeping it neck and neck.
Certainly is. It's going to be close, especially because admittedly the compositions are relatively similar. And I know we kind of said that this was probably going to be the case early on. I am a little bit surprised to not see anybody going for, say, an Assassin's build or even pick up too many Hunters. I mean, we see a couple Muranas picked up by Triple N, but typically I'd expect to see somebody have a 3 Hunter bonus by now, or some other damage dealing sources other than just all relying on trying to find the Savages or the Arc Wardens.
Yeah, I am really surprised that there's no Assassins, because when you get to play Assassins by yourself, it just turns into some really degenerate stuff.
Yeah, I love Assassins. I mean, like I said, I've been playing them a lot on my ladder games. Although, to be fair, you do have Anti-Mage out, which hurts their early game a little bit and does hurt their late game. You don't get elusive quite so trivially, like you just run those 3 elusive Assassins, but that's not the end of the world. I mean, the game fights are still won by a 3-star Phantom Assassin or a 3-star Slark. Can absolutely demolish these warrior compositions, because the Assassins also apply a healing reduction debuff, and if your whole composition is built on an Essex healing your warriors, that's not going to fly against Assassins.
Right, and obviously when you pick up things like Mask of Madness, those on, I mean, pick an Assassin that's 3-star and putting a Mask of Madness on it. Usually when you can get that onto a PA, you can get that onto Slark, it just wipes their whole board. Or an Anti-Mage just wipes their whole board.
Yeah, pretty much anything except, TA. Morphling.
Right, Morphling, right?
Even Templar Assassin, you could argue, is reasonable.
Really?
I mean, it wouldn't be great.
I was going to say, that's not where you want to be, but it's better than...
I mean, if you have 4 of them, I guess she's probably the 4th.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know. But I don't think I've ever seen 4 Master Madnesses. And if so, you probably already won the game by the time you got that.
I was going to say, if you had 2, you're doing pretty good for your Assassin build.
Yeah, you want the first one on Slark, you want the second one on Phantom, and then the third one on Anti-Mage if you ever get there.
Yeah, and then your opponents all die.
Even so, I'm still surprised because no one has been going for insects either, which I've been a big fan of insects, especially in these long drawn-out fights where the insects will just constantly deal damage. You basically can't kill them. You can just delay them.
Right, they just smash you.
They'll come back and just keep on dealing their damage, and it's both offensive and defensive, because then the people attacked by it have a chance to miss their attacks. So it's unusual to see everyone fighting the same exact fights for the same exact units, when I bet someone could have assembled a really nice insect assassin build or insect hunter build by now.
Yeah, but the issue then becomes, like, why should I play something that's not the best crew right now, right? Like, if it doesn't work out, then I'm just going to look back and say, man, I should have played that crew. And if I don't play that crew, that's extra pieces for the people who are playing it. So I think maybe that's the thought process.
It certainly can be, and it comes down to a level of balance. I think is that in an ideal world, you've got this, got one or two strategies that are the best strategies in quotations here, and if you can get them, those will probably win. But the problem is, if too many people go for them, you probably won't get them, and therefore you'll lose. And then you have these like tier 2 strategies, which are a little bit weaker, but you can more consistently get them, especially if they're uncontested. And I think the situation right now might be such that the best strategies are so much better than the tier 2 strategies that they kind of crowd out, despite the fact that you maybe could get the tier 2 more consistently, it still might not be powerful enough.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just what we run into with the current warrior situation. There's a ton of warriors. They are low cost, so there's just plenty of them going around. And then the really good ones, you don't necessarily need to have them at level 2 in order to make them worthwhile in your comp. So it's like, okay, if I don't get a Kunkka, I can play Tiny. If I don't get Troll Warlord, I'm probably worse than the other warrior decks, but I'm probably better than most of the other crews that are out there. So it is what it is.
We've seen players get top 2 or top 3 running 1-star Tidehunter, 1-star Slarter, or some other like 1-star warrior, and that's just unfathomable if you're trying to play an Assassin's build and you have a 1-star Templar, or a playing Hunter and have a 1-star Marana. Like, that just doesn't fly. Whereas in the warriors, it can work. It can be functional.
And we see here Tidehunter in the middle, trying to do his best to go ahead and fight this level 2 Tiny, but he's just got so much damage coming to him from it looks like a level 2 Arc Warden in the back. And that's just so much damage, and we've talked about this before. When one player has multiple Arc Wardens still on the board, and you're not able to at least kill the original, maybe just deal with the clone, you're going to have a problem.
Absolutely, especially a 2-star Arc Warden just going crazy. What do they have on it? A Maelstrom.
A Maelstrom, yeah.
That's what we were talking about. The Maelstrom just racks up damage constantly over the fight, spread out, and just dealing lots of damage. I am concerned right now. We've got Sanchez Hawk as the next one up to be eliminated. We've already have 2x Josh eliminated, so that is the end of Josh's tournament here. But Sanchez Hawk was our current leader with 15 points overall in this tournament.
Yep.
And, we said Sanchez Hawk controlled his own destiny, but it's not looking too hot for him.
I was going to say his destiny doesn't look very good at 16 health and only 1 gold. And, I mean, Angel is at 82 health. And that's not to say that you can't make up a, 66-point swing, but it's a little bit like ice skating uphill.
Certainly is, and I mean, to their credit, Sanchez Hawk does have an Aegis, but so does 322 FR1, the person who's next on the chopping block. So if everyone has an Aegis, it's kind of a moot point.
That's right.
Everyone's going to be that much more survivable.
Well, here we go. Looks like we're going to be able to take out the opposing Underlord now, but is that going to be enough? Because it looks like both Underlords...
Too little, too late.
Yeah, a little bit too little, too late. There is a call down coming in, but there's just so much red on the board still, and look at this. There are...
Bristleback.
Look at these Spirit Bears.
The Bristleback was like stunned by the Marana ult and was like 1 cast away from just getting like 3 or 4 kills there. And unfortunately was stunned and killed during that Marana ult, which is just a really long stun. It's like 5 or 6 seconds long or something like that. So that Bristleback is like the main damage dealer here, but I gotta question the decision to hook up Io with the backline Enchantress.
Right.
As opposed to just putting it on the Bristleback, who's like the only thing that matters in this fight. If that Bristleback survives, you win the fight. If it doesn't survive, you lose because you lack damage.
Yeah.
So hook the IO up to.
And one of the things that we do here with our observation of our games is we've been picking a player and just kind of following their journey to understand where they're at, what kind of stress they're dealing with, and this particular player, if they win, they almost certainly will be winning the tournament. So we're sticking with them until they are out. And that could be sooner than later, based on how this goes.
Yeah, it's maybe very soon here. This is not looking well. It's once again the same matchup. The 2-star Arc Warden in the back line with the Maelstrom is just absolutely shredding. I mean, the Bristleback has done 5,000 damage so far. The opposing... this can't be right. I'm seeing the opposing Arc Warden has dealt 90 damage.
Yeah, that's definitely incorrect there. But looks like this level 2 Tidehunter is about to get another Ravage off. Will it be able to get it off? It doesn't!
Oh, I was looking at damage taken. Ah, that would make a lot more sense.
Yes.
The opposing Arc Warden had taken less than 100 damage. That makes much more sense. Meanwhile, it dealt out over 17,000 damage.
Only
so,
17k.
yeah,
A mere 17.
The Bristleback only dealt 8k. It's respectable, but
That ain't no 17.
You're not in the same league. You're not in the same league here.
You're not even in the same sport. Like,
no, not even close.
But we are now round 25. Have Smuggler. Another opportunity to maybe find a big time item that could change the fortune for Nervin, but 8 health. So only two more rounds guaranteed. But we'll see.
Not even that. Nervin does not have.
Oh, Nervin doesn't have it.
Correct. No, the other two players, it was Sanchez Hawk and even 322 has lost their Aegis. So it is just Sanchez Hawk here. The bottom 2 people are 1 shot away. So you have to imagine that 322 here is going to be spending all of that 50 plus gold to either level up or reroll here.
And here it goes. You can see it was going down a little bit, and for Nervin, it's not enough for this positioning. Like, I mean, even if Nervin was to finish or to outlast 322 and then lose from there, you got to be able to outlast Sanchez Hawk as well.
Do you find a refresher orb?
Ooh.
That could go on the Lone Druid, could go on the Tidehunter, just really lock him down forever.
Yeah, I think that, but needs the damage, right?
I would think so. I think you'd want to get the 2-star bears, the 2-star Lone Druid Spirit Bears here, and then just hope that they can chunk away over the long fights. Especially with the 4 Savage bonus, they're racking up damage pretty quick. +6 attack damage every single attack.
Oh, level 2 DK for Triple N. That's...
Oh, yikes.
Ooh.
Yeah. And they've got the 2-star Mirana deal damage. They've got a Daedalus on that Dragon Knight. Yeah, okay. I'm liking what Triple N's got going on here more than Nervin here. So it might be... We'll see how the matchups goes, but it might be the end of our buddy Nervin here.
Put a Mask of Madness onto the Tusk. Tusk is going to do his best to fight this Pudge. There's the Ravage. Will Tusk be able to take out this Pudge? And it looks so far so good. That's going to be step 1. Have to be able to kill this guy. He's down. Now, Tusk, on to the next one. Trying to take out Tiny and trades with Tiny there. So this is okay. Have 2 Spirit Bears ready to rock, but there is a level 3 Spirit Bear that is fighting them off. Oh, that's very nice.
Io comes back to Bristle.
I'll see you rise.
That's the main damage source, so it's possible.
Well, we have a stunned bear off to the right side. It is eating Enchantress. Enchantress looks like she is going to fall here. But there's still a lot of green. Our Demon Golem is now onto the opposing Anisix. That's going to be it for her. And this looks like it will be a victory for Nervin.
Yeah, that did work out in the end. The double Spirit Bears, the Lone Druids doing work in those long fights. And not enough to pop Sanchez Hawk's Aegis, though. So Sanchez Hawk still has basically 2 lives left. 1 more loss and then the Aegis. So it's still close. I mean, any of these players, any of these bottom 4 right now are definitely within 1-shot range. But Anme and Sanchez Hawk both have Aegis. So it'll be a nail biter here. But I would be very surprised if either of those 2 compete with Angel or Triple N here for the top spot.
Yeah, and what kind of upgrade is necessary for Nervin? Arc Warden level 2? I mean, obviously that would be nice.
Yeah, level 2 Arc Warden. I'm at a bit of a loss. I mean, Alchemist is not too bad either. To get to 2-star, that dramatically increases your damage output by just shredding more of their armor. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and that's what's really hard when you get in these positions. It's like you want to have an answer that you're looking for, right? You want to say, okay, I just need this, and we're not sure what this is right now for Nervin.
Yeah, and any answer involves I need 2 copies of a 4-cost unit.
Oh yeah,
and so hard. And
well, this is going to be
that may be the end of the line here.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be death. Anisix ends up getting hooked, but 322 out in 6th place first. And it looks like Nervin, well, I don't, maybe? Oh, Pudge doing his best. Maybe can get a draw here to hold on. Help! Oh, it's, no. The lone Eidolon. And there it
Nervin
is.
out in 5th.
All right. Let us go ahead and follow Sanchez Hawk, who is on 3 life.
Yeah. So Sanchez Hawk was in first place going into this round at 15 points. And with both 322 and Nervin being eliminated in front of that, I mean, Sanchez Hawk will definitely finish higher than both of them. They were 322 was the second place player at 14 points, and Nervin third place at 12 points. Angel could still catch up. Angel was at 12 points to Sanchez Hawk's 15. So that dynamic, Sanchez Hawk is really rooting for Angel to go down and vice versa.
Yeah. Now, let's see. Sanchez Hawk, don't lose. Don't lose. But
it's
you're
just that easy, right?
It's just that easy. Gonna be going and trying their best. And here we go. Pudge gets turned into a pig and tossed away.
Do you see the Tiny got locked itself in at the start of the fight for Sanchez Hawk?
Not how you draw it up.
No, Tiny basically tossed itself into the corner. Not ideal there.
We see the Troll Warlord
is still going to town and is basically untouched. So, you know, I'm liking Sanchez Hawk's positioning here.
Yeah, here we go. Sanchez Hawk making a move now, Spirit Bear, and looks like ended up enthralling the level 2 Tusk.
And that's going to be a win. That's going to knock out or pop the Aegis on Anime here.
I feel so bad when you're at low life and you beat the other low life person and it says -0 when you win. You're just like, ugh.
You're like, I was that close. And then next round, you know, like you're both gonna lose, but you're gonna lose first because that's another one of the gripes I've had about the game is the tie-breaking procedures is literally just who died first and not who died by the most.
Right.
I definitely would like to see it, you know, your life total can go negative and then it sorts out whoever went most negative.
Nah, just give me one more round. Just give me one more round heads up. Like,
yeah, sure. I could do that too.
And like, because that would feel like at least I had something. You know, you're like, all right, overtime, me and you, see who does it. But I know that maybe adds a little bit more to the game. It's one more round, and it doesn't feel as bad.
And it also gets a little complicated. Like, what if 3 people go out in the same round? Then
all 3 of them on the same board. Whatever.
All right, yeah, just super board, like like 3-way chess.
Yep, 3 sides.
Seen people do that. That'd be weird, but I'd be down for it.
Yep, that's next level Underlords is instead of just 1v1, it's Battle Royale, 4 players on the board at once. See what happens.
This is not looking good for Sanchez Hawk here.
No.
Warlord and the IO have been doomed, and those are the 2 big damage dealers on this squad, so Doom just basically takes them out of the fight. We haven't seen too much Doom today because he is a brute, no longer a warrior, but he is still just as powerful as ever once he does get his abilities.
But unfortunately for Sanchez Hawk, oh, there looks like Triple N knocked out Anime in 4th place.
So Sanchez Hawk is at least 3rd, and I think...
Does that lock it up for him?
No, if Angel wins, Angel I think would take it, because Angel would go up to 22 points, and Sanchez Hawk would be at 21. So Sanchez Hawk locks in his final score at 21. So if Angel wins the whole tournament, but if Angel loses against 2nd place, then Sanchez Hawk wins the tournament.
Oh my, everything on the line for Angel, and happens to be streaking at the right moment.
If Triple N wins, they tie for first.
Oh my.
Because Triple N is at 11 points, so they both, Sanchez Hawk and Triple N, would go up to 21. So either way...
Sanchez Hawk is messed up.
Well, at best, he's hoping for a tie. And I don't know what the tie-breaking procedures are. So...
I believe that the tiebreak is heads-up matches, but like, we'll find out.
I haven't been tracking those, but in any case, Sanchez Hawk is hoping for a tie, but Angel can win it outright with a win here.
Well, let's go over to Angel and see what's going on. Fighting up against the Dinos should be an easy situation.
definitely should be with all the CC. They can't be healing up when they're CC'd, so they're pretty trivial to take down. But if you have a comp that doesn't have a lot of CC, like say a mage's composition or something, then they can just heal full and you'll have a bad.
You'll have a bad time. And just as we say that, the dinos are making their comeback.
They didn't have enough CC. They couldn't kill them during the CC windows, and they healed back to full.
Oh, well, finally takes that one down and turned this one into a chicken, and here comes another demon golem, and then that will be it.
Yeah, took a little longer than you'd like, but in the end it worked.
Man, and the items for Engel are not that great.
Well, it's kind of weird. The way Blade Mail works is it reflects 30% of the pre-mitigation damage. So if you have like a lot of defensive abilities like Warrior bonus, then Blade Mail is actually quite substantial, especially on a Pudge. That being said, they did just pick up a Daedalus here, and a Daedalus plus a Moon Shard on your 2 separate Arc Wardens.
So, all right.
You don't need too many damage items if the ones you get are that big.
This is going to be a lot of damage, and if you are triple N, you are not feeling good about seeing a level 2 Arc Warden with a Moon Shard, and then a level 1 Arc Warden with a Daedalus.
Yeah, especially when you look at Triple N's board, it's 1-star Lone Druid, 1-star Tidehunter, 1-star Arc Warden.
Bunch of trash. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's a 2-star Dragon Knight.
Which is that's awesome.
Refresher orbs. Yeah, there's some refresher orbs out there, but just by pure counting the number of stars, it seems like Engel's got a bit of an edge.
Well, step 1 is going to be, can he destroy and kill these Spirit Bears? Because that's going to be a lot of damage, and the Spirit Bears are now down. Arc Wardens still alive and kicking, but here's the push. Oh, Lone Druid got returned, and here comes a Spirit. Just when you thought you'd gotten rid of the Spirit Bears, they're back. 2 more.
And Engel's IO brings back Doom, but it's stuck in the corner.
It wants to fight, but it can't. Freedom!
Oh man, Triple N's gonna take a big chunk here. Just some unfortunate positioning, people getting locked in, and of course the IO bringing back the Lone Druid is just so much damage.
Yeah, that was just a huge beating. Because, like I said during the fight, is if you can take out those Spirit Bears early before they just get crazy, it's fine. But he did that, and then they just came back. So 4 Spirit Bears for your trouble.
Yeah, I'd like to see Engel open up the formation a little bit. Even move the IO and the Arc Warden on the left section over to the right by 1, and then move out some of these guys in front of the Arc Warden, because we've even seen sometimes that the secondary Arc Wardens couldn't actually move forward because the attack range on the ranged units in front of them were locking them in. And not to mention the IO bringing back somebody who's already trapped in by ranged units. I think their positioning could use some work.
Why is Tidehunter behind Pudge?
I couldn't possibly tell you.
Interesting.
There is some logic to putting warrior compositions backline like this.
Okay.
And the logic there is you don't care who attacks who. You just care that none of your units get burst down immediately. Because all your guys are tanky, all your guys are individually strong. You don't need to like focus fire a single target.
Right,
You
but
just don't want to be exploited by the
look,
enemy.
the opposing Anesix gets taken down. This is going to be a huge chunk coming out of Triple N.
Wow. I did not expect that at all.
Well, how do you... I mean, if you get your Underlord hooked, and now you can't heal, now you don't have your Demonic Golem, you've got none of that going on. I mean, what did we think was going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that initial hook obviously was so impactful. And I think it comes back to what I was saying, that because these warriors are now backlined, that nobody gets burst down. Because it's kind of chaotic. Everyone's going to walk forward. Everyone's going to like shuffle up, and the targeting is going to be scattered. And then that benefits you if you have a lot of healing, if you have a lot of sustained damage output. It's not like you're a hunter composition that wants to like single target one guy down. And we saw that work. The Doom survived for so long. The Arc Wardens got their damage out, and it worked in the long fight.
Yeah, and you can see that the opposing DK is also backline. It's ranged, but he's hoping, you know, let's make sure that if something gets hooked... Oh, no! Anesix is the one that gets hooked, not DK. And Anesix is going to fall down again, and that is a bad time.
Favors Engel here, yeah. I don't think it'll be enough.
Well, Io brought back Doom, and here comes the Demonic Golem. And this is going to be it.
Not quite enough to knock out Triple N here, but it's close. They're going to be down to like 2 or 3 life.
Ooh, 4.
Wow. Yeah, does Angel have an Aegis? Or is this
Let's see.
game? No Aegis on either player. So it's gonna be down to this one last fight. If Angel wins, remember, then
Angel wins, right?
Or Angel wins the tournament outright. So this is for all the marbles right now.
What can Triple N do? I mean, he's got to just make sure that prevent Anisix from getting hooked. You got to put it somewhere else.
Certainly. Have to adjust that. And I like putting Mirana in the corner to get hooked because she just will jump
She'll just jump out.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. Or put the Arc Warden like we see here. But actually the problem is that with the Triple N's positioning, the Arc Warden is still in that corner, that B1 spot. The problem is they're going to have to walk forward. Like
right.
this.
So now it's still the same problem. Let's see if it happens again.
What you have to do is you actually have to move the Arc Warden slightly closer to the middle, so it doesn't have to walk forward to get into range.
Well, and look at this battle. It is obviously, it's still favoring to Angel, but it's a little bit closer.
It's a lot closer, and you got to think if they had made this adjustment last round,
right?
That maybe they wouldn't have taken 17 damage and could have gotten somewhere.
Yeah, and Io
But
ends up bringing back the Lone Druid, but it's not going to matter. This is going to be all she wrote. Too much damage. Too much Arc Warden. But wait, double. Wait a minute. Hold on. Double bear incoming. The Spirit Bears are not going to take it. They're not going to go down lightly here.
Mirana's still going. Oh man, I don't know. This is too close.
Look at this. The demon could not take down that Arc Warden, and that is going to be it. There was a small period of time where we thought...
I doubted it, but Angel has won, and Angel has taken the win in this tournament. From tied for 3rd place before this round, that 1st place puts him up to 22 points, just barely edging out Sanchez Sox 21 points for 1st place in the ESL Dota Underlords Challenger Series Europe October 2019 finals.
Very, very close. Congratulations to Angel, and congratulations to everyone who played in the tournament today. Obviously, playing at this level is never, ever easy. Never. But we have a champ, and for everyone else, if you want to follow either of your casters today, Tim, when would they find you?
On Twitch.
Anywhere.
At Twitch TV/Tinman354 or over on Twitter at Tinman_gaming.
And I have been your host and play-by-play guy all day. It is Rob AJG. You can find me anywhere on Twitch, Twitter, any of those things at Rob AJG. Had a great time today. Very, very exciting. But don't forget, there are still Challenger Series tournaments out there every Sunday. You can play now on ESL Play and make sure you support them. But we are done for the day. You will be able to check the VODs on the Twitch channel and possibly on the YouTube channel, but we'll find out. Anything else you need to say before we head out?
No, that was an amazing tournament. We saw some awesome high-level plays, and it came right down to the wire. The winner determined in the final fight. It was a great tournament. Loved to cast it.
Very, very happy with what happened here. So that's all we have for today, but we will see you at another time. And again, don't forget to check out the Underlords Challenger Series every Sunday, 1300 CET, and we will see you next time.